Robert F. Kennedy Jr. obviously switched from Democrat to independent last week, and there's been a lot of noise in the media, a lot of speculation. Who will he hurt more in the general election, Biden or Trump? Because conservatives had these high favorability ratings of RFK while he was running in a Democratic primary. And I will admit this is a bit of a let's pat ourselves on the back kind of segment, because I said all along, I said RFK is going to prove a bigger threat to Biden in the end than Trump. A, because Trump's base is more loyal to him than Biden's base is to Biden. And B, these conservatives are going to have a very short honeymoon with RFK, because at the end of the day, the guy is overwhelmingly liberal in his views. And so as soon as they check under the hood, they're not going to like what they see. They spoke highly of him when he was running inside a rigged Democratic primary because it helped delegitimize the Democratic Party. They did the same to Bernie Sanders. They spoke favorably of Bernie Sanders in the 2016 primary, not because they liked him or his views, but because he was getting screwed by the Democrats, and propping him up was their way of accurately, yes, and correctly describing the Democrats as this sort of illegitimate, anti-democratic, corrupt institution. But now that he's outside the Democratic Party and he's going to be on the ballot against Trump, honeymoon's over. So here he is on the Sean Hannity show for what he thought was going to be a kind interview. And you could see how RFK is very awkwardly taken aback by the fact that it's hostile. It's hostile now because now he's running against Trump. So here we go.
I really do appreciate your position on the border. You and I are in agreement. You know, it's interesting because everybody's now trying to analyze, you know, whether if there's a three-way race with...
By the way, stop. I just have to address this because this is the elephant in the room. Talk about late-stage empire, right? Try to, for purposes of this segment, block out the images of World War III on the right side of the screen during the interview. I know it's hard.
That's the Archduke Ferdinand there taking a headshot, but please tell me your views on the environment.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
You, Donald Trump, and Joe Biden, you know, who would you more likely draw from? So I hope you don't mind, but I did a little research on you. You're pretty liberal. You know, you've called for curbing, logging, oil drilling, fracking. You wanted to eliminate it. You called it a victory for democracy. You want to curb U.S. fossil fuel extraction. Keep it in the ground, you once tweeted. You want a ban on fossil fuel extraction, a ban on fracking. You called the NRA once a terror group. You've supported over the years Democrats, Gore, Kerry, Obama, Hillary. You've praised Bernie Sanders multiple times. You support affirmative action. So why is this party of yours, why didn't they even want to allow you to compete? Because that's as pretty liberal of a record as anybody I know.
The word is you're to the left of Cenk Uygur.
Right, exactly. This is what I was telling you guys. This is why Trump doesn't have to worry about him as much as you think. He'll pull a few from Trump, but not many. This guy is an anti-gun, pro-choice, environmental lawyer, right? I mean, this guy is not someone who the conservatives are going to be able to get behind when they already have a Republican in the race who they like, Donald Trump. Let's hear RFK try to wiggle out of this.
You have a litany of talking points from statements I've made over 40 years. Some of them are stale. Some of them I'd never said. But, you know, what is your question? Why the Democratic Party? Why I'm not running at the Democratic Party? You know,
why did they kick you out?
I feel like...
Well, they kicked him out partially because of everything you just said, because he is to the left of Joe Biden. That's part of why they kicked him out. And yeah, no, there are other reasons for that as well. But this is why I told you there is going to be no honeymoon for RFK with the GOP or the MAGA base. And if you notice, as Russell has said before, one of RFK's go-tos when he gets called out for something that's inconvenient that he said is he'll just say, well, I never said it. So he says there, well, some of those things you mentioned are stale, meaning I said them a long time ago. He doesn't refute them. That's a lawyer term. That's stale. What do you mean? Right? There are things I said 20 years ago. Some I stand by, some I don't. But stale doesn't mean anything. And then some of them I never said. Hannity actually, to his credit, did bring the receipts. And actually, yes, you did say all these things.
Yeah, he's we've said that from the beginning. And you know, one of the few benefits to going against, well, I wouldn't say the whole crowd, but a sizable number of people were pretty pissed when we read RFK's book and said what we had to say about it. But, you know, if you're right, you're right. And eventually time is going to vindicate you. You know, I mean, now, were we wrong to smell a rat with RFK from the beginning? Between his Israel stance and the fact that look at how he handles this interview. The guy is a fucking liar. He is a lying degenerate. He will say what he needs to say like a lawyer to get out of what he said. He'll take different positions depending on who he's talked to. He'll try not to answer the question or to fudge it or to give himself plausible deniability as much as he can. You know, if he can sow chaos, if he's going to go pull a Joker on the system, he's going to burn Gotham to the ground. Okay, go ahead, man. But, you know, he is who he is. Don't expect any better.
Exactly.
I mean, by the way, I'm giving you comments that you made in 2016, 17, 19. Endorsements. We know the years Gore, Kerry, Obama, Hillary, Bernie Sanders. They're all recent quotes. The NRA quote you made about calling them a terror group was 2018. So these are recent positions you've had. That I'm not sure why the Democratic Party wouldn't allow you to.
He's referring to a tweet that he sent out in response to the Parkland shooting, where RFK agreed with the Parkland students that the NRA was a terror group. So yeah, I mean you can call that stale. That's 5 years. That's fairly recent. And you know, Hannity's not a thoughtful guy. Hannity reads what's on the paper. That's why he read the dates. Right. 2016, 17, 18, 20. Right. These are recent quotes.
Do you want to talk about my position, Sean?
Yes, sir.
He is talking about your positions, idiot. Right. He's a Republican. Yeah. And you thought that they were going to be into you because of the vaccine stuff and somewhat because of the Ukraine stuff, but they're not into you. They're not into you. You are pro-choice. You're anti-gun. You're an environmental lawyer, for fuck's sake. A Kennedy. Right? It shouldn't be this big surprise that they're going to turn on you once you threaten the candidate they actually prefer.
The Kennedy thing is a bonus for him. Like that, if they got a Kennedy who didn't have these positions, they would love it.
Right.
They would love it.
Right? I mean, it's a non-starter. The gun thing
that would be like the Democrats running a Bush convert.
Right. Exactly.
I want to read talking points from the Trump campaign.
Well, excuse me. These are not talking points. These are called Hannity points. I do my own research.
Oh, yeah.
No,
yeah,
I saw that same list published this morning.
I want to see how many books Hannity has in his study at home, you know, in Long Island, wherever he lives. I do my own research here.
Campaign is the exact.
By the way, look at the dystopia on the other side of the screen. They're hauling around body bags. I mean, just unbelievable. You know, oh, God.
Same list. And again, if you want to know what my position is on any issue, I'm happy to talk to you about it.
Well, he just asked.
On those positions.
He just asked you your position. He just asked you to clarify your position, and you accuse him of dredging up stale talking points, some of which you never said. And now you're saying, hey, if you want to talk about my policies, that's why I'm here. No, he is talking about your policies. He's just not kissing your ass anymore because you're running against his candidate now. See, they don't care. When you're running in a Democratic primary, they will just use you to delegitimize the Democratic Party. You're an asset to the GOP when you run inside a rigged Democratic primary. That's why they spoke favorably about Sanders. Once you actually compete with them, they're going to treat you as an opponent because you are now the opponent.
Right.
Hannity wants Trump. He doesn't want RFK. And the conservative base wants Trump. They're not going to want RFK. The Republican base is not going.
I have been writing about Israel-Palestine for a long time, And it's hard. I don't blame people for the fact that, whatever the CrossFit trainer or the yoga teacher puts out a statement and it's not the most nuanced, or it gets some little things wrong, like that's fine, but you shouldn't have to post it in the first place. And I think that that is also contributing to the misinformation, because we're getting so much of our information from these takes. And it's like, to your point, most people don't know that much about it, which is fine. It's fine not to be an expert in it.
I'm John Favreau. Welcome to Offline. Welcome to Offline. I'm John Favreau.
I'm Max Fisher.
It's been a week.
Oh my God.
It's been a week. So we have a few lighter stories to cover. Burning questions like, have the brands ruined humor on the internet? And is your Alexa an election denier? Can you dig into this?
My Alexa has great politics. My Alexa gone woke.
But first, we want to talk about the biggest story of the week on the internet and the real world, the Hamas attack on Israel that has now led to war in Gaza. The news coming out of the Middle East has been painful and horrific enough, but somehow the internet and social media, and especially the platform formerly known as Twitter, have made the experience of getting that news worse than I think it has ever been with any crisis.
Yeah.
So if you've been feeling that too, we are here to commiserate about it, unpack why and what has changed, and talk about what it all means for the future of knowing what the hell is going on in the world at any given moment. And how lucky I am to be talking about this with an expert in both global conflict and social media, Max Fisher.
It's a real week for the cross sections of the most depressing things that I know about.
Yeah, you're really in it.
If Myanmar invades, then it's really going to be my moment. Whole thing. Yeah.
All right, let's just start here. But is it just me, or has it been impossible to follow this crisis in a way that makes you feel reliably informed?
I really think it's not just you. I got into journalism right around the dawn of the social media era. I've been on all the platforms. I've been covering major international crises, major political events, and I really believe that social media has never been worse than it is right now. It's never been worse. It is.
And we do this for a living.
Right.
This is our job. And I'm still trying to find accurate, reliable information.
It's so hard. News basically does not exist on any of and it's not just Twitter. It's on any of the platforms. We can talk about why that is. And it's rumor and misinformation is rampant, both of the kind of misinformation that we typically think of as fake videos, but also I think much more pervasive kind of misinformation than just exaggeration or rumors. And it's also completely overrun with just the dumbest possible culture war fights and interpersonal Twitter beefs. And this is what the majority of Americans get their news from. The majority of Europeans get their news from social media. This is, I think, a really big problem.
Yeah, I mean, there's been, and we're going to talk about it, there's obviously been a lot of takes about the misinformation, but it's not just in misinformation. It's an avalanche of takes. Right? Too many takes, not enough news.
Right.
Very little context.
Mm-hmm.
Unconfirmed rumors, unverified sources, uninformed analysis.
Mm-hmm.
In some cases, completely fake images or videos.
Yep.
CBS News, the CEO of CBS News told Axios, I think this week, that they went through over 1,000 videos of the conflict and found only 10% usable.
Wow.
Yeah.
Also, that sounds like a really difficult way to spend. I mean, hats off to them for going through that.
How much do you think the general and shitification of Elon Musk's platform is playing a role in this?
There's probably a case that Twitter's relative degradation is the worst, and that Twitter used to be very, very good for breaking news events, for following the news, for getting firsthand accounts on the ground. And now it's basically impossible to find any of those things, so they're really buried. And of course, Elon Musk has changed the algorithm to deliberately downrank news sources. So it's not a coincidence you can't find it. The algorithm is literally withholding them from you and is instead serving you just viral Twitter arguments. And he's also dismantled, of course, a lot of the trust and safety teams, but all the platforms have done this. I mean, we've talked about all of Facebook's platforms have made versions of these changes, and TikTok and YouTube never even had the good version to backslide from. They've always been like this. So it's and it's also I think this conflict, this issue in particular, it brings it out in people.
Yes. Yeah. I want to get into that too, because I think a lot of times it's hard to separate out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, fog of war, it's just hard to get information, right? So it's not like everything has always been perfect, and social media, even at its best, put that in quotes, social media, even at its best, I think as a crisis is unfolding, is sort of difficult to figure out what's accurate, what's reliable, what's changing. But I think that we're in a different level now.
Yeah.
And I think that this conflict in particular, because, you know, it has had its roots in biblical times, and like we're dealing with it for thousands of years, right?
Yeah.
And also it is, I think the feelings about this conflict go far beyond the region where it's happening.
That's true.
And I think that, so it's sort of pulled everyone in.
Right. And Americans especially have a very emotional relationship to this conflict, which is not unreasonable. And people tend to identify very strongly with one side. So they want to see information and takes that validate their side. I think it's also just important to talk about, like, when we hear misinformation, we think like the fake Hamas videos or things like that. And it's definitely a big part of it. But I think that the like way more pervasive kind of misinformation right now, which I think is illustrative of where social media is going, are things that are just like a little bit exaggeration or a little bit decontextualization or something that's like uncertain and is taking the kind of like hookiest possible version of events that like we think of misinformation as something that like other people do. Like we would never do that because we don't need to lie because we're right and our side is righteous and we don't need to do misinformation. But like I am really telling you, if you were active on social media, I think there's like a 90% chance that you have shared misinformation in the past week. And that doesn't mean you're a bad person. You're following the incentives of the platform, but they're like, I can tick through like a couple examples of so the like kinds of misinformation that I think it's easy for us to not identify as such are a lot of things like and I'm so sorry, these are really horrible, so I'm going to try to gloss over them a little bit. Like there was a video of an Israeli woman that had been taken hostage in Gaza, and from the initial video, it was not clear whether she was alive or dead. And the reports that circulated on Twitter said that she was confirmed dead and confirmed sexually assaulted. And like you could look at that video or that photo and reasonably make that conclusion, but the version that so many people saw was the most extreme interpretation of it that now is just like fact for a lot of people, and you hear politicians repeating. Similar to that, there was at one point when Netanyahu made a statement where he called on all Gazans to leave buildings occupied by Hamas, which is terrible because that means like apartment blocks. It got a little bit like weirdly mistranslated, and it sounded like he was saying all Gazans need to leave Gaza. And that again, that was like
I see. I didn't know that until just now.
Exactly. Right. And it's like, it's, you know, you could reasonably look and be like, well, what's the difference? Or it's still bad. And that's true. But it's just like these versions of events where you get like multiple take cycles before it gets corrected. And then there are just like people do a lot of takes that are very emotional and very like, I'm really taking a strong stand on behalf of my side, that it's hard to label misinformation as such, but are just exaggerations in a degree that I think are really misleading people. Like I've seen a lot of tweets in the last few days that said that most Palestinians support Hamas to some degree. And like, there's probably some truth to that, but it's also a lot more complicated. And it's the kind of thing that you wouldn't put like a fact check stamp on necessarily, but I see that as a kind of misinformation that is like meaningful.
The challenge is, or one challenge is that you can find almost anything on social media to support what you already believe.
Right.
And so to the point about most of Palestinians support Hamas, you can certainly quickly, if you search, find a video of Palestinians who are not in Hamas cheering on the death of Israelis, right? And you can certainly find videos of Israeli government officials saying what seem like horrific things, and maybe are, but like are not, they don't have the full context. And so this becomes a challenge as well, is that there can be real video, audio evidence of exactly what the point you're trying to make, that doesn't necessarily represent the totality of what everyone in that group thinks, of course.
Right. And the context of it is just shifted enough to be misleading. And I also, part of what I think is really hard about it is like, if people are encountering the like really sharp elbowed Twitter takes first, and then later they read the news article, and the news article is trying to introduce nuance, it's both like a little too late. People have already seen it. And then people's response is usually to be like, look at the lying media that is trying to downplay the other side's crimes. And it just it's an information environment that is really hostile to that.
I mean, the sort of the most salient, but I think also most horrific example of this has been this debate over whether or not Hamas decapitated the babies that they murdered. And it's like, yes, we want the most accurate and complete account of what happened.
Yeah.
But the debate over which account is correct becomes polarized in a way that mirrors the larger political debate. So the insinuation is, if you think the decapitation story is true, you must be pro-Israel. If you think it's wrong, you must be pro-Hamas. And of course, the way I just said that is, of course, simplified, but that is the tenor of that debate. And you're like, whether the babies were killed.
I know.
That's what we're arguing about over like how baby, like I can't even say the words again, but it's just like, what is everyone doing?
I have been really struck with so many people online are so intent on litigating this question of like cause of death of these 30 some or maybe 40 infants. And every Middle East reporter I know, or person who spent a lot of time in the Middle East or is from the region, is like, who fucking cares?
Yeah.
Like what? And I understand people like you said, it is accurate information is important. I'm not saying that it doesn't matter. I'm not saying it's irrelevant. And it's also like, it's not ideal that within 24 hours, true. The president repeated it as fact and said he'd seen it confirmed. Like, that's not amazing, and really says something about the misinformation and how easy it is for it to spread now.
So there's a sort of a larger there's one response to all this, which is stop getting your information from the internet.
Yeah.
Right. And who cares?
Or social media.
Social media. Right. Yeah. And it's all on social media, and just like put your phone. We've said this. Put your phone down. Walk outside. Do something else.
Yeah. How are you doing with that? Because I'm not doing well.
Not well.
Yeah.
But like a couple people have made this point. Ryan Broderick made it in his Garbage Day newsletter, which is like, Twitter has become a terrible source of information, but is still the place where journalists and especially political leaders and policymakers go to make news and get news.
Yeah.
So even though it is, and Ryan said, Twitter has continued to remain at the top of the digital funnel while also being 4chan levels of rotten, it's still being used to process current events in real time, even though it doesn't have the tools or the leadership necessary to handle that level of responsibility. So what happens is, it is this just garbage dump of misinformation or information that's exaggerated, too many takes, all that kind of stuff. And yet somehow it's still getting to Joe Biden.
I know.
He's the president of the United States. And it's not just him, right? Like other world leaders, journalists, people who do not necessarily have the intent to misinform,
right,
but are sort of just getting this bad information anyway. And I even think, like, I hate talking about this story because it's so horrific, but even as you get into the debate over the story about the infants, it seems as if it was an honest mistake.
It does.
On whether it happened or not, and it was just people again, trying to get the best information, and somehow the internet always attributes bad intent to misinformation, when sometimes misinformation is just an honest attempt to tell the right account, and just people fail.
Welcome. I almost should call this the propaganda report after that line, but welcome to Straight out of politics. I'm your host for today. I'm CJ. That was a doozy right there. CJ stands for Compton J on social media. J in real life. That was a doozy. Decided to come to you today because, again, we just have so many stories, so many different perspectives that we can't cover in the amount of streams we've been our regular stream. So I added one yesterday, I'm adding one today. So hopefully I'm able to get to all the stories today. But this is a new one. This was going to be just an intro, not an intro, but a pre-show video. But when I was watching it, I discovered this is them soft pushing that censorship is needed and coming to push back against Palestinian solidarity. And this is what the establishment always does, and these guys are a representative of the establishment. They frame a new policy as something good for you to get rid of some bad shit. And they always come up with some legitimate examples, but the application is never the application never aligns with what they tell you in the beginning. So when they're saying there needs to be some sort of, there's just a wild, wild west out there, people having different perspectives. You mean people are thinking for themselves? We all have to have a unison sort of perspective on everything, in particular Israel. And then one key thing that they said, when that really made me say I need to play this, is because he said, and what's happening is, if you're getting the point of view of some random YouTuber, they didn't say YouTuber for whatever word they said, podcast or whatever said, take, before you actually hear the news, then you're looking at the news as lies. So they're saying people like RBN is getting to the people before they're able to get propagandized. So what was the tag on that? Shit. I did say the number, but I just I tried to remember it, but I forgot to write it down. Was it? Anyway, I'm gonna try to look for this comment.
Over which account is correct becomes polarized in a way that
okay, yeah, I'm close here. It was right around here. Okay, so let me see. It was this guy here, Max, I guess his name is. I'm gonna play it again.
The news article,
That's
and the
huge.
news article is trying to introduce new ends.
Okay, I'm right at the point. Still, none of these numbers are jogging a memory. So let me play it from here and listen to what he says. I think the guy on the right, I think he said his name is Max. Let's listen.
Right, and the context of it is just shifted enough to be misleading. And I also, part of what I think is really hard about it is, like, if people are encountering the
This part,
really sharp elbowed Twitter takes first, and then later they read the news article,
That's
and the news
huge.
article is trying to introduce nuance, excuse me. It's both like a little too late. People have already seen it. And then people's response is usually to be like, look at the lying media that is.
I don't listen to these guys too often, unless something comes across my eyes that's interesting. I think this is maybe the third time I'm covering them. But I haven't heard, and again, mine is minimal. I haven't heard sort of a mini conversation about something that does not indicate these guys are absolutely 100% establishment goons. Not like, oh, they're they're currently working for the establishment in order to put this narrative out there. This is it. Like, I haven't heard anything. This is them admitting that they have lost the control over the narrative. And they dumb it down. They use word like the online left or the online people or these people on Twitter. These are all terms that are meant to be like slurs. Activist is another one they use. Activists online. These are meant to be slurs in their minds. But they have identified, and I'm not saying now they're just unidentified, but they're coming out saying basically, listen, guys, you may be hearing other tapes that are giving more truth. And then when we come with the propagandized story, cover story, you need to stop listening to those people. That's what these guys are out here to do, to get ahead of the people that are getting ahead of the story. And that's the unique thing about independent media, is that a story drops, we're not waiting for a schedule. We can go, you know what, turn on the camera and the light and let's go right now. So we're in effect have the ability to go live and on the ground and report as things are happening, because of the apparatus we use to stream is a lot quicker. So we're able to get our content out faster, especially when we're talking about this Israel-Palestine apartheid genocidal massacre that's going on. We're able to get our message out a lot faster. I remember when this first popped off, it was already so many people reporting on it. And even to this day, that's all that's in my feed. I don't have anything else that even shows up in my feed right now except for Israel stuff or Palestinian stuff. That's it. Like if there's 100 tweets that I see, 2 maybe something else. And everything is viral. Like everything has 5,000, 6,000, 2,000 views. So this is what they're describing here. We're getting ahead of the story, and by the time the propagandized story is reaching people's ears, they're having the reaction that they just described in this video. And I'll let him say it again because he says it so perfectly.
Right, and the context of it is just shifted enough to be misleading. And I also, part of what I think is really hard about it is like if people are encountering the like really sharp elbowed Twitter takes first, and then later they read the news article, and the news article is trying to introduce nuance, excuse me. It's both like a little too late. People have already seen it. And then people's response is usually to be like, look at the lying media that is trying to downplay the other side's crimes. And it just it's an information environment that is really hostile to that.
I mean, the most,
isn't it? He's there. I mean, we see this. We're the ones in these comment sections. That's the way he's describing all this sort of viciousness, like hostility towards that. That's all of us. So their message, their propaganda is not penetrating, and that's what we're seeing all over media. All over media is the realization that they have hit a wall that is impenetrable. And right now, the only remedy they have is either censorship or to try to sort of hypnotize you, be your thought leader. Let's listen to a little more of this, and then I'll insert comment, and then we'll get to the rest of the stories here.
Salient, but I think also a most horrific example of this has been this debate over whether or not Hamas decapitated the babies that they murdered. And it's like,
they did not. That is a fake made up story. We reported, I know we did it. I know we did a segment dedicated to that. Nick did another segment on his own. So what they are also doing in here, I'll wait to make the point because it'll be better made when they do actually do it on screen.
Yes, we want the most accurate and complete account of what happened.
Yeah.
But the debate over which account is correct becomes polarized in a way that mirrors the larger political debate. So
did you hear what he said? Actually, let me play it again so I can get the right wording. I'll play it from about here.
Hated the babies that they murdered. And it's like, yes, we want the most accurate and complete account of what happened.
Yeah.
So this is the beginning of the apologia for propaganda being exposed. Because there's a lot of propaganda stories that's never exposed and people still believe to this day, including about this massacre that's happening in Palestine. So one of the propaganda lines or talking points got exposed, and this is their apologia for that. Them saying, yes, that's the point of news to get it right, but basically going to say, is that really the point to get news correct?
Yeah.
But the debate over which account is correct becomes polarized in a way that mirrors the larger political debate. So
he's saying the way that the debate over the beheaded story, people will say this is bullshit, and other people say no, this is true. The way that debate also mirrors the larger political point of who's for pro-Israel, who's for Palestine. That's what he's basically saying here.
So the insinuation is, if you think the decapitation story is true, you must be pro-Israel. If you think it's wrong, you must be pro-Hamas. And of course, the way I just said that is,
isn't that what the case is? Is it not? Is that not the story?
Simplified, but that is the tenor of that debate. And you're like, whether the babies were killed.
I know.
That's what we're arguing about.
Okay. These guys are pretty good because this is the forget the lies, there's a bigger point argument. This is how we forget the lies. You see the overacting. There's babies dead. Really? There's Palestinian babies dead. Probably 3, 4, 5 times the amount. I think the last I reported, last number I saw was over 500. Where was your video on that? Is that a true story?
Over like how baby, like I can't even say the words again, but it's just like, what is everyone doing?
I have been really struck with so many people online are so intent on litigating this question of like the cause of death of these 30 some or maybe
of litigating lies being told by the state. Right, you guys are so concerned with war propaganda. Come on, guys. Fuck out of here, man.
maybe
Come
40
on.
infants. And every Middle East reporter I know or person who spent a lot of time in the Middle East or is from the region is like, who fucking cares?
Yeah.
Like what? And I understand people like you said, it is accurate information is important. I'm not saying that it doesn't matter. I'm not saying it's irrelevant. And it's also like, it's not ideal that within 24 hours of this information coming out, that it seems like it was at least like a little bit overstated, but like 50% true. The president.
It was a little bit overstated. An outright lie is a little bit overstated. Do you see the people who are watching them, who, again, we give grace to these people, the ones who are just naively watching this, wanting to get the right information and wanting to be good people. That's who's watching this. And they're trying to head off our ability, and I would say people like RBN's ability to reach those people.
president repeated it as fact and said he'd seen it confirmed, like that's not amazing and really says something about the misinformation and how easy it is for it to spread now.
So there's a sort of a larger, there's one response to all this, which is stop getting your information from the internet.
Yeah.
Right? And who cares?
What do you mean? They all reported. You just said the president reported on it. So what do you mean stop getting your news from social media? What if you got your news from the president? And I saw that story on many network and cable news networks. I saw that story on CNN. Saw that story on CBS News. Those are two in particular. I saw that story. So what are you talking about?
Cares
or social media.
Social media,
this is
right?
Them trying to create disinterest or trying to create a credibility chasm for information on the internet. So this is all they're trying to do.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's all on social media, and just like put your phone, we've said this, put your phone down, walk outside, do something else.
Yeah, how are you doing with that? Because
Yeah,
I'm not doing well.
Not well.
Yeah.
But like a couple people have made this point. Ryan Broderick made it in his Garbage Day newsletter, which is like Twitter has become a terrible source of information.
Throughout this segment, he's talking about Twitter. The way Twitter is described, I just don't have this same experience. Twitter has not been better or worse. It's the same thing since I've been on there. Now, granted, I've been on there 4 years, so we're talking right at the pandemic, like literally in the beginning of the pandemic to now. Before that, Twitter was only used for business when I was a club promoter and some other stuff. That was it. I didn't know Twitter. I didn't know a lot of people or nothing like that. But the time I've been on Twitter, I don't see what these differences. It's a cesspool. Whatever cesspool it is today, it's been the same cesspool since I've been here. So I have no idea, but I think this is this is the establishment's way of discrediting getting information on social media, like individuals, citizen journalists. Stop believing them, because the narrative, they have lost narrative control. And it's because they're and they said just like they're saying in this video, there's people out there on YouTube, on Twitter, saying a bunch of stuff, and people are believing other regular people over corporate produced news. But let's continue a little bit more.
But is still the place where journalists and especially political leaders and policymakers go to make news and get news.
Yeah.
So even though it is, and Ryan said, Twitter has continued to remain at the top of the digital funnel while also being 4chan levels of rotten, it's still being used to process current events in real time, even though it doesn't have the tools or the leadership necessary to handle that level of responsibility.
Tools or leadership handle that level of responsibility. That's language about censorship. Tools, leadership, responsibility. Those are words you use when you're describing censorship without saying the word censorship.
So what happens is it is this just garbage dump of misinformation or information that's exaggerated, to me, take all that kind of stuff. And yet somehow it's still getting to Joe Biden.
I know.
He's the president of the United States. And it's not just him, right? Like other world leaders, journalists, people who do not necessarily have the intent to misinform,
right,
but are sort of just getting this bad information anyway. And I even think, like, I hate talking about this story because it's so horrific, but even as you get into the
it's
debate
so weird that in the last 2 years, no one was having these conversations about quote unquote misinformation and how we need to eradicate it. Like literally, if I just think back 4 years pre me getting on Twitter, never heard anybody having this conversation. But now this is a thing that it is very important that we must scrub all places that people freely talk. This is a weird conversation that we're having, and we're just having a conversation and nobody's saying, this is weird that we're having this conversation.
The story about the infants, it seems as if it was an honest mistake.
It does.
He just said honest mistake. This show, Pod Save America, just called deliberate lies dressed up as war news that got exposed because it was flimsy. And this is what they have to say about that.
About the infants, it seems as if it was an honest mistake.
It does.
That excuses what? That excuses what?
Right.
On whether they're happening or not, and
Right.
it was just people again in the fog of war trying to get the best information, and somehow the internet always attributes bad intent
Right.
to.
You mean we always attribute bad intent to the U.S. empire responsible for millions of deaths since its existence? Why wouldn't we just look at the history? Show us any history of them having quote unquote white lies that doesn't have bad intent behind it. Do you have any examples of these? I mean, just take Julian Assange and the things that he exposed. Was it good intent behind what he exposed or bad intent behind what he exposed? It's amazing that it can't be anybody, I would say, it has to be people that's my age watching him in their 30s and 40s. Nick, yeah, I guess all of us in our 30s and 40s. I'm in my 40s here. Okay, so I guess, yeah. I can't imagine people that are 18 and 20s watching this stuff. Just rank propaganda. I'll let him say this part again and then let it continue here.
About the infants, it seems as if it was an honest mistake.
It does.
On whether they're happening or not, and
Right.
it was just people again in the fog of war trying to get the best information, and somehow the internet always attributes bad intent
Right.
to misinformation.
Right.
When sometimes
Now, when they say the internet, they're talking about people. Somehow regular people always attributes, because the internet is regular people. This is how the professional managerial class type who don't know any regular people, this is how they get their information. They go on social media and they say, oh, let's see what the regular people are talking about. Because they don't know any regular people.
sometimes misinformation is just an honest attempt to tell the right account, and just people fail at doing
Right.
so.
Right. An Israeli guy.
Sometimes it's an honest attempt and they just fail. That is a stretch.
Walked into an incredibly horrific scene of a massacre, saw some tens of numbers of dead babies, some of whom had
Are
been
you talking about the dead babies that the reporter who was reporting live, and everybody says a viral video, I reported on it yesterday, reporting live, breaks down live because she has to report that she says, I personally have seen dead infants, and she describes their gruesomeness. I won't have to go into that. And she is voice quivering and has to stop and like crying. Are you talking about that? It's amazing. So let me see if I can find it here just so you can see it. It's everywhere. That was under what is under Palestinian update? No, the newest one. Maybe I won't show you for this segment. I thought I had a segment here. I don't. All right, so I won't show you for this segment. Hang on, somebody keeps messaging me here. Okay. So wife messaging me. So yeah, no, I won't show you because I don't know where that video is, so I can't show you that right now. Hang on 1 second here. Okay, I'm sharing this one. I had to get on the right page. All right, so let me go here. And we're gonna move on now to some of our other stories here, and I'll pop this up on the screen to just show you what are we going to be talking about. Well, first let me announce this. Tomorrow 2 p.m. Eastern, we have Ajamu Baraka that will be joining RBN for conversation. So make sure you join tomorrow 2 p.m. Eastern. We also have the post-duopoly show tomorrow. I don't have a graphic for that yet. That'll be at 8 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. But make sure you tuning to this. Ajamu will be joining us for conversation. The other thing, here's the graphic for today. Now, the reason you see Huey Newton and Fred Hampton, because just want to shout out happy birthday to the Black Panthers. A short little tribute to them I have for 5 minutes just to talk about them a little bit and read a little bit about them. And then caught the morning Sunday shows, and Nikki Haley was on State of the Union. Hopefully we'll get to that. But on the graphic, you see Lindsey Graham, and you see Lindsey Graham was on Meet the Press. So we'll cover that. And then Ron DeSantis was on Face the Nation. We'll cover that. And David Pakman calls out lefties over Hamas, basically saying you're not a real leftist if you are not staunchly against Hamas. So again, some of the topics. That's my daughter. Some of the topics will be: happy birthday to the Black Panther Party. David Pakman calls out lefties over Hamas. Palestinian protest. This is the other one. And that's RBN members on the ground. So Nick attended a protest. JB attended a protest or march. Maybe I should call it a march. And Rome attended a march. So I'll be just showing you a little bit of that. Then Israel postpones ground offensive in Gaza Strip. We'll cover that story. And then Caitlin Johnstone has a story. Her latest piece is called "It's Not the Israel-Hamas War, It's the Israel-Gaza Massacre." And we'll cover that. So that is what's on the agenda for today. Let me see what my daughter wants right here. Hang on. Close it. Bye. All right, so had to give some instruction. Wife stepped out to get something at the store, and so the daughter coming to me to find out what to do. All right, so thank you for your patience. Let me shout out a couple of things here before I get into the next story. One, I got a super chat I'll read in just a moment. I think I'll start with the happy birthday to the Black Panthers. I'll start with that short little segment in just a moment. Maybe I should put this on. Seem to be getting a ton of messages that I wasn't getting just a second ago. So I'll put it on mute for now, but I will turn it on. I will turn it on in a second. We are at 158 likes, which is great. We can do significantly better. We've gotten up to 350 people that was watching at a certain point. So let's go ahead and make that the target. Sorry, let's make the target 300. How about that? That's a little easier. So if you hit that like button, the target is 300. We're currently at 158. So let's help me out by hitting that target. Help me out by getting to that target by hitting that like button. If you have not already, should be easy to get to 300. We've had over 700 people come through at some point or another to watch the show. 756 to be exact. And let's do this here. All right, now I think I'm set. Now let's read the super chat. I'll put those numbers on the screen. Hit that like button. So let's see what super chat, or maybe it's a super sticker. I have here. Super sticker. Abiding 71, always showing love, not only to RBN, but to lots of lefty networks I've seen you in. So thank you for that, sir. Now, Zoya. Zoya's in the chat. What's up, Zoya? And who else do we got here that I can shout out? Thank you, somebody keeping track of the likes. I'll throw up some of your comments there. Pacman comment. Another good Pacman comment. And here's another good one from Zoya. What is happening to Assange is a warning to all truth tellers. Don't you dare. They could have killed him, but instead they parade his persecution as a living reminder to never expose their secrets. And that is spot on by Zoya's Love, Zoya's Life. So what's up, Zoya? All right, so let's get into the next story now. Hit that like button. The goal is 300. I'm gonna say it like that, like the chef from South Park's father. He said 150, but he says 100 like that. So 300 is the target. Now let's get into. Just saying happy birthday to the Black Panther. So let's do that. Let's do this quick little story here. Where am I at on there? I think I'm on this one. Black Panthers. Let's see. I'm watching myself on the screen to make sure I click the right one. Yeah. All right. So let's just look at a couple of items from the Black Panthers that I'm going to be covering today. 1 second here. And I'm going to start with a video. And again, this is just a short little 3 or 4 minute tribute, maybe 5-minute tribute, including my talking to the Black Panthers who were founded on this day. And I do want to start with this video before I kind of get into the birthday celebration, because it's kind of a cool video. 1 second here, everybody. Now I have it set up. So now I will share. I needed to get everything kind of set up here in the background. So now I will share here. And I'm going to start with this video, like I said. I posted this video it's been a year. Hopefully it plays all the way through. It's a pretty good video. It's about your First Amendment rights and how they got taken away.
No one wants to touch the legitimate hunter, but we've got to protect society from nuts with guns.
When bands of armed people with loaded weapons can move about our streets, intimidating and frightening citizens, then I think we should act, and we intend to act. It's my intention to make it a misdemeanor to have loaded rifles and shotguns and weapons in public places.
The police department had went to a local congressman to get a bill written. So Huey called me up and says, we have to go to Sacramento. It was conceived as a media event that the press is always at the California State Capitol.
No one really wanted Huey himself to go because Huey was kind of a quick-tempered firebrand. Bobby was a little more cautious. And it was like, look, you've been great so far, but, you might blow it up there and, bad things could happen. We caravaned to Sacramento. I think there were about 30 of us all together. And most of us had some weapon.
We was on the state capitol on the lawn, and Ronald Reagan, then the governor of the state of California, was there, about 10 feet away from us, holding a press conference with these young, like, parochial school kids. And what happened, as soon as the press seen us, they gravitated from Ronald Reagan over to where the Panthers was.
The Black Panther Party for Self-Defense calls upon the American people in general, and the black people in particular, to take careful note of the racist California legislature, which is now considering legislation aimed at keeping the black people disarmed and powerless. At the very same time, racist police agencies throughout the country are intensifying the terror, brutality, murder, and repression of black people.
The state assembly was in the midst of a heated debate when the young Negroes, armed with loaded rifles, shotguns, and pistols, marched into the Capitol.
It's a great story. I think that's the end of the video. They marched into the Capitol. Now, I did a full version of this. This is just a clip from the clip on this, so you can go check this out. I Am Revolution series it's a playlist. It's called I Am the Revolution. I'm sorry, I Am the Revolution. You can go see the full video. But this clip from that video shows why eventually legislation was passed to abridge your Second Amendment right. And it was specifically due to the Black Panthers. They showed up in this capacity, the state capitol, with their rifles, which was legal with an L, not an I, with an L, legal at the time. And that's when, oh no, we can't have this shit. Negroes with guns showing up because of a Second Amendment right, and that right was then abridged. And as you saw, the governor at the time, who ended up becoming the president that all of them love. So let's now begin to read some of just the history. This one by the African Stream put together a short thing here, and I'll play the video, which is also a short video. It's like a minute and a half. I mean, pause it, but let me read some of it. And again, just as a tribute to the Black Panther Party on this anniversary. So today is Sunday, October 15th. So we're celebrating Black Panther Party's 57th anniversary. On October 15th, 1966, Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale founded the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. Founded the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense was founded in Oakland. Okay, that's just a misprint. Oakland, California. The party was a revolutionary Black socialist organization with a strong internationalist politic. Its presence quickly spread across the United States, with major chapters popping up in San Francisco, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Seattle, and Philadelphia. The party was known for its free programs known as survival programs in Black communities. They offered health services, children's educational services, food, clothing, and more. Their work was guided by their 10-point program. The first point stated, quote, "We want freedom. We want power to determine the destiny of our Black community. We believe that Black people will not be free until we are able to determine our destiny," end quote. The Black Panther Party left a global mark as it eventually created an international section in Algeria and established a presence in the United Kingdom. It also inspired marginalized people in other countries to establish similar types of Panther parties. The organization took clear anti-imperialist positions in regards to national liberation struggles across the African continent and around the world. Let us know what you think in the comments, and I'll play this video here as part of this presentation.
America, Black people are treated very much as the Vietnamese people or any other colonized people, because we're used, we're brutalized. The police in our community occupy our area, our community, as a foreign troop occupies territory. And the police are there not to, in our community, not to promote our welfare or for our security and our safety. The police in our community couldn't possibly be there to protect our property because we own no property. They could possibly be there to see that we receive the due process of laws for the simple reason that the police themselves deny us the due process of law. And so it's very apparent that the police are only in our community, not for our security, but the security of the business owners in the community, and also to see that the status quo is kept intact.
So that's African Stream that covered that. And let's see, I got a couple of other tweets to show, I believe. I think he pretty much covers it. Maybe I'll just show you some more pictures because it's the same information. This one is from Daily Radical History on October 15, 1966. Black Panther Party founded in Oakland, California, an urban revolutionary movement against racism and capitalism in the United States. And then they show that picture there. And well, oh, this is the picture. I have a video that has the same sort of thumbnail, but this is from 3 years ago. That's why it says 54 years ago. Here's one. This one's from Haymarket Books. The Black Panther Party for Self-Defense was founded on October 15, 1966. Oakland, California, Huey Newton and Bobby Seale, and that's just another rare photo that you see of them. And let's see here. Here is Kamal from Black Power Media. Let's read a couple of his. Let's read his caption. October 15, 1966, Black Panther Party Self-Defense was founded as revolutionary Black formation to challenge oppression and fight for self-defense. It stood in solidarity with other oppressed people around the world against Western imperialism and settler colonialism. And then saw that picture earlier. There's another red picture. You got it. Here's the one, Black Panther Party National Headquarters. And that's another classic one. This used to actually be part of our banner, this picture, when we were called Fred Hampton Leftists, actually. Here's another front, a Black Panther Party chapter front right here. So, all right. So happy birthday to the Black Panther Party. 57 years ago today, they were established. So just shouting out our Black radicals and giving them their just due. So let's now move on to some other stories here. And I do want to move to, let's see what I have prepared. Let's do it that way. Let's see what I have next in line. Let's go to RBN members. That one, where's it at? RBN Palestinian coverage. So let's go to, I'm going to go now and show you some of the coverage that RBN members, and it's amazing. It wasn't at all coordinated. Everybody on this day, we're going to go. It just happened. One person was, oh, I'm going to go here. And another one's, oh, I'm going to go there. And then end up, because I didn't even know about Nick going until he started posting pictures. So maybe at the last minute, not the last minute, but later he decided to go. So we're going to show you. So I'm going to cover this now. Let me put up. All right, banner RBN members. Let's go Palestinian protest. Let's do that. All right. And Aaron, you can start it here. RBN members on the ground, and this is at Palestinian protest. And like I said, Nick was at a march yesterday. JB was at a march yesterday, and Rome, was it yesterday? Yeah, Saturday, yesterday. Today's Sunday, yes. So we're going to kind of just go through all of these, and I do want to start with this video from JB, and let's listen. It's not even, it's like 24 seconds. Let's listen to what JB says here.
This week has definitely solidified what I know the policy of the West is. It is always okay to stand your ground unless you're black or brown. Free Palestine.
So now let's go to some of the protest coverage. I guess I'll start from the bottom here. Yeah, I'll do that. Make it easier. I tried to put all of Nick's together, then all of Rome's and all, but some of it, it didn't work out that way later on when I get into the scrolling part. But we start here. This is Nick at the KC event. And it says, the quote, I'll read and then I'll play the video. We have journalists among us. 7 journalists from Gaza has been killed. Just yesterday, 3 were targeted and 1 of them died. Where is the uproar? From the Free Palestine March in KC. This video is about a minute and 15 seconds. Let's listen here.
Crime after international war crime. We have journalists among us today. 7 journalists in the Gaza Strip have been killed. Just yesterday, 3 of them were targeted, 1 of them died. Where is the uproar? Where is people's thoughts and prayers? We are here to be their voice, and we will not stop yelling. We will not stop chanting. We will not stop rallying until there's an end to the occupation which started this mess to begin with. We will not stop until the siege on Gaza Strip is lifted, and we will not stop until the U.S. stops indiscriminately funding the Zionist terrorist war machine. We will continue to be out here as long as it takes, but this is one voice of many. You need to be the voice of the people of the Gaza Strip. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine.
Wow, so Nick getting some great coverage. Like this is one of these movements. Like people have been waiting, kind of just like for a tipping point on this topic to really, because they how people have come out in masses at the drop of a dime with this happening in masses to protest is very similar to the George Floyd sort of protests that happened. So let's get some other receipts here. So that's one video of Nick, is pictures and video. So some video, some pictures. Here's another one here. Maybe this is the same guy talking, but a different point where he's speaking. I won't read the. I won't. Oh, I will. 649 of our kids have been buried. Every single one of these speeches at the Kansas City Free Palestine protest were tear jerkers, man. You can feel the pain in their voices, truly heartbreaking. Let's listen to this one here.
Children have been killed. 649. That's this morning. You see how the numbers of our children dying change by the hour? 649 of our kids have to be buried. 649 just this week. In 2008, it was 346. In 2014, it was 540. When will the world care? Enough is enough. We are here to deliver the voice of Palestinians and deliver the voice of the Gaza Strip. We need people to be aware of what is happening. What is happening right now is a catastrophe, but don't let anyone tell you a lie and tell you that this is a religious war. There are Christians among us today. There are Jews among us today. And if they were to go in front of the Zionist war machine, they would be spat at. We have been dehumanized. Enough is enough. We are not animals like that Zionist terrorist president of theirs called us. We are not animals. We are human beings. And we care about what is happening to them. Takbir!
So that might have been, maybe I played those videos out of order. Or maybe I don't know what order they are. I'm just kind of saving them here. That's a longer one. Wow, he has a lot. All right, let me see, make sure I have them kind of in an order. So all of Rome's are here, then JB's. Okay, so I have them in a pretty decent order. All right, so we saw one, we saw two. Now let's move to the next one. This is all Nick so far. We're still at the KC march and the Kansas City march. So the caption reads: 94-year-old Palestinian gave us a history lesson and explained the horrors he faced due to the genocidal state of Israel. His entire life was a great speech. Here's about 3 minutes of it. This is Nick. Okay, so let's listen. He says this is a great speech. He didn't catch all of it, but this is 3 minutes of that speech. This person's a 94-year-old Palestinian.
Peaceful people. We love our children. We love our women. We do not.
So turn your volumes up because I can hear, but if I really keep quiet, it is a 94-year-old person. It's not like we're going to be able to get this person to talk louder. You get what I'm saying? So try your best to get closer, get into a quiet place to hear what they're saying, because I can make it out, just to give you a heads up.
Believe in violence. The violence was given to us by the Zionist movement. We need to do some research. We need to read about the history. They tell us there is no Palestine. They tell us there are Palestinians. saying it does not easy. So we are Palestinians. Northern Ireland.
It doesn't help that the people in the back are blowing their horns, so maybe we won't be able to show that one and hear sound. So maybe I'll play that in the back so you can just see that later. Let's see if we can get a better. This looks like a closer video, so maybe this is a better quality sound because I begin to where I couldn't even understand what he was saying. The caption of this one says Palestinians at the Free Palestinian protest was simply asking for human rights and human dignity. This one's a minute and a half, 90 seconds.
Not just a slogan. It's call for justice, equality, and human rights. As the law, human rights law student, I'll be talking about. It's a plea to recognize the aspiration of people who wish to live in their homelands without walls, checkpoints, or blockades. It's a reminder that every child in Gaza, or mainly in Palestine, had the right and the dream for a future where they can play, study, and grow without the shadows of conflict looming over them. When we raise our voices for free Palestine, we're standing on solid ground, backed by international decisions. The United Nations, in one of its resolutions, highlighted the importance of withdrawing from occupied territories. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, adopted in 1948, promises every individual the right to freedom, justice, and peace. The Fourth Geneva Convention of 1949 clearly states that civilians must be protected during conflicts and the occupying powers cannot move their own population into the territory they occupy. These are not just opinions, they are commitments made by the global community. So when we support Palestine, we're just repeating what the world has agreed on. Thank you, everyone. Free Palestine!
All right, so now we get into some of Rome's video. It's less speech talking, it's just more you see them walking and marching. So it's kind of a good sort of coverage that they got, because we have one that's covering speeches, and that's at the KC Ranch, and then we have one that's kind of getting marches, and then JB is also getting marches if you watch his coverage. So let's listen to, or let's watch Rome. And again, this is not necessarily speaking, it's just showing them walking. Now we're moved to Detroit for this. Is this? Yeah, here we go. All right, so that one, and then Rome saw this sign on this car. It says, "This Jew says, stop the genocide of Palestinians." That's what that says on there. He saw when he was marching. Here's another one, and Rome was just saying, "I love this van." Here's another one of Rome marching. Out in front, you can see the people marching. You can see more people back here marching. They're marching in the rain. It looks like it was raining earlier. But that's Rome right there, out there in the march. Let's see if he has a caption. He says, "We here." It just shows one Palestinian flag in this car. So that's another one. Hello.
And we're going to be leaving.
Oh, yeah. Volleyball practice. Okay.
I didn't get a chance to put the food away, so.
I will do that.
Okay.
I'll take care of it.
All right.
And I'll call you in a little bit while you're over there. All right. So that's the wife is taking off to take the daughter to volleyball practice. All right. So back to this. I lost my train of thought. I was there. So here goes Rome. This is him with his two of his little ones. They went to the march with him. He's bringing them up, training them in the revolutionary style already. I'll let it loop. Let it loop here. All right, so let's see. Then we move into JB's, but I think there's a Rome one up here. Oh no, sorry, there's a KC one. So let's show all of JB's together. So here is more KC, and this is just pictures. This is Nick out at the KC event. You can see it's a lot of people. Let me actually, I didn't read this. Let me read this. It says free Palestine, free. It says for free Palestine. And then let's read this sign. Resistance to apartheid is not terrorism. Just showing the crowd there. So just 4 pictures to show there. Now let's get to some of the JB pictures. Here goes JB. Now we move to Florida. So this is a different event. We covered the KC event in Missouri. Then we went over to Michigan to the Detroit event with Rome. Now we, move down to the Florida event in Orlando. Showing some pictures. There's one of the signs. It looks very similar to downtown Long Beach. These tall buildings and the palm trees. So there goes and thinking about moving. Florida is one of the states that I told my wife, a conservative state, I would be okay with moving. I said Florida and Arizona. So we'll see. Here goes JB here. That's a large crowd out there in Orlando. So yeah, that's awesome to see JB out there. JB is disabled. I don't know if everybody know this. JD is disabled, and when it comes to you get a dialysis Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. So it's amazing to see him out there to do this. So let's see here. Where was I? Oh, I'm sorry. I lost because I was reading the comment and I lost my train of thought because I was reading the comment. Just showing more in the crowd above him. Lots of people. That's just amazing to see people come out for it. And just a couple more pictures. I think I showed you that one earlier. And then there's this one here. There's this one here. End all U.S. aid to Israel. Exit, resist, and return. And then there's the flag. So, and I think there's one more video of, I think JB showed somebody speaking. This looks like more like a rally here. Let's listen.
Palestinians don't deserve life. Palestinians deserve life. Palestinians deserve freedom. Palestinians deserve
Great to see. And yeah, I got all of so that's the RBN coverage of the event, or the various Palestinian resistance events around the nation. That's 3 different states, 3 different cities, and 3 different states you saw there. So that is fantastic to see and witness here. Now let's move on to Pacman, the Pacman boy. So, and I'm going to play it. Just a second. Let me hit pause and set it up the right way.
We are actual leftists. We don't.
He's talking about actual leftists. Milquetoast people talking about that. And this is his video. He put this out himself. So that is the next topic. And I think I already have a banner made for that. Yeah. So David Pacman calls out lefties over Hamas. And we're going to be talking about this in just a moment here. Let me shout out. We got a new member between segments. So let me just shout out a couple of comments, super chats, before we start this next segment. This one is not a super chat. This one is a brand new member. So brand new member. I think that's Donnie Nunn. Obviously, a pseudo. alias, but thank you for joining. Thank you for becoming a brand new member of the RBN community on YouTube. And now it's time to get into a couple of other things. Let me do one thing here. We now have a person that's helping us watch our email account. So if you emailed us before and you didn't really get a response, we now have a person who's covering it. So here is our email if you ever needed to contact us about anything. If you wanted to be a part of one of the chapters: Orlando, Florida; Kansas City, Missouri; Detroit, Michigan; Boston, Massachusetts; and Long Beach, California. Any of those cities or surrounding areas, like in Long Beach, it's a lot of surrounding areas, but Long Beach, I will say, so you got like, San Pedro and Carson, and you got Paramount, you got on the other side, you got Los Alamitos, Seal Beach, Cerritos, Norwalk, Santa Fe Spring. Any of those cities are surrounding cities to Long Beach. Email us if you're interested in being part of any local actions in any of those 5 chapters. And right now, those are the only 5 chapters we have. The other thing here is our website. You can go here, check out many things, but one of the newest additions to our website is our merchandise store. So you can go there and check out things. We have shirts like a shirt or a design that says NATO is a terrorist organization. You can get that on a mug. You can get that on a t-shirt, a tote bag, a hoodie, a pullover. You can get all of that same logo on any of those items there. We're currently at 241 likes. The goal is 300. We've had over 1,000 people now come through at some point and watch. So I'll put those numbers there. I don't think so. All right, so let's get to this next segment. Let's get to it in, where are we? Right here. And Aaron, you can start here. So David Pakman decided to put out a video, and not only a video on YouTube, which is his normal thing, but he put it out on Twitter, which means he really wants this to get out because he rarely tweets his content on Twitter. He wants you to go see it on the various platforms. But this he decided to tweet out, and I'll read the caption before I play the video. It says, "True leftists don't do apologetics, maybe I'm just going to say apologia, for Hamas." And this is David Pakman. So let's listen to David Pakman's establishment propaganda. Let's listen.
We are actual leftists. We don't support authoritarian regimes. We don't support terrorism. We don't support violence of any kind. And that includes violence coming from Israel to innocent Palestinians. We don't support movements that subjugate women or LGBT people or those who say, I don't want to be part of this religion anymore. We feel terribly for the Palestinians living under Hamas. Lots of the people
living under
supporting Hamas in the West would be killed by Hamas or at least subjugated. And that's lost on many of the so-called progressives on the left. So we need to make sure that we don't ignore death and suffering on any side. On any side, it's a disaster. It also has to be recognized that after a terrorist attack, countries will defend themselves. Apply what happened here with Hamas to anywhere around the world, and we would be saying, well, the victims have to defend themselves. Now, do they defend themselves in an appropriate way? Do they even go out? When we were attacked by Al-Qaeda and went to Iraq, did that make sense? No, it made absolutely no sense. And so we can still be critical. We can still be discerning and all of these different things. But the attacks on me as I thought you were a progressive, I want to hear which progressive value I'm not espousing.
You're not espousing colonial settler you're not espousing a perspective that is against colonial settler project called Israel. I would say that's a progressive policy that you're not espousing, David. But let's replay it, and we're going to take it point by point.
We don't support authoritarian regimes.
We don't support authoritarian regimes. We don't? Now, I'm going to ramble off a bunch of names. Do you think Israel is an authoritarian regime? Do you think Saudi Arabia is an authoritarian regime? Do you think the United States is an authoritarian regime? So all of those I would consider, but okay, let's skip over that part. Let's see what the next party says here.
In regimes. We don't support terrorism.
We don't support terrorism. Do we not support terrorism in Yemen? Did we not fund that through Saudi Arabia? Did we not support terrorism in all sorts of forms, from Syria to Somalia to Afghanistan? Are you just talking about a particular type of terrorism? Because starving people, I would consider that terrorism through sanctions. Let's listen to what else he says.
We don't support violence of any kind. And that
you don't support violence of any kind except for when it comes to sending weapons to Ukraine. David Pacman. We don't support violence of any kind except for sending, what did they just send over? Destroyers, some sort of ship they just sent over to Israel. But we don't support violence. Okay, so let's listen.
And that includes violence coming from Israel to innocent Palestinians.
Now, this is where you see how he has a caveat of innocent Palestinians. Now, I'm being picky. Now, he's going to go into detail why I can say I feel comfortable with saying he's using the word innocent Palestinians to sort of chop up who should gain our humanity. Which this is a better way of saying which Palestinians should gain our humanity. So let's listen.
We don't support movements that subjugate women or LGBT people or those who...
Now, so this is where he starts to conflate things. So he's saying subjugate women and LGBTQ people. He's talking about people who are part of Hamas who may be Muslim, and his interpretation of what they view about women and LGBTQ. He's saying this is what he's saying about them. But he's acting like Hamas, who believe these things, and I agree, they do believe these things, that Hamas is simply, I'm not going to say simply, but is defending itself and defending its people and have been elected by the people of Palestine.
Who say, I don't want to be part of this religion anymore. We feel terribly for the Palestinians living under Hamas.
We feel terribly about the Palestinians living under Hamas, not we feel terribly about the Palestinians who are forced to live in Gaza, who are forced to live in an open air. Now, people are saying prison, but we are updating our language to say concentration camp because prison implies you did something wrong, and they didn't. This is a concentration camp. So let's let David continue.
Lots of the people supporting Hamas in the West would be killed by Hamas.
So he's saying the left, who, now I wouldn't get strongly to say the word support, but the West, who isn't going after Hamas the way that the establishment wants us to, that's who he's referring to. He's saying those people. So if you're transgender and you're saying free Palestine, those people will want to kill you. That's what he's saying. What does the people's belief who are being killed, and I'm granting him this argument. I'm just saying for the sake of argument. What the belief of people being killed have to do with whether or not they should be murdered or not. So unless you're saying because what they believe, so let's say they are against transgender rights. Let's say they are against homosexuality. You're saying they should be killed for that? What are you saying exactly, David?
Or at least subjugated, and that's lost on many of the so-called progressives on the left. So
you should be against the Palestinian struggle because certain Muslims who are Palestinians are against gay people?
So
that's a very unusual way to deliver your personal humanity to this world. It's dependent on something.
We need to make sure that we don't ignore death and suffering on any side. On any side, it's a disaster.
Give credit to the suffering that's happening to the colonial settlers, is what he wants us to do. We're giving too much sympathy to Palestinians and not enough to Israel. The Israeli settlers is what he's saying. He's upset about that.
Disaster. It also has to be recognized that after a terrorist attack, countries will defend themselves.
After a terrorist attack, countries will defend themselves. I find it very funny how people in Western sovereignist countries, they always skip over the atrocity and when they start the timeline of events. Like with Ukraine, we skip over 2014, the coup. Like with the indigenous people, we skip over the stealing of their land. Like we skip over all of that. Now let's start history now in sovereignty countries. Let's start all of these things we want to apply to other countries. We started after the shit we did.
Apply what happened here with Hamas to anywhere around the world.
Let's do that. Somebody comes in your house and takes over your house. A person who lives with you, a roommate, decides, hey, this shit ain't happening. I'm about to fight these intruders by any means necessary, and they might use tactics you wouldn't use. But let's not miss the point that Hamas, by whatever means, whether you agree with it or not, would not be doing what they're doing if Israel wasn't here as a settler colonial project. This is why they have to sell it as a religious war. Because it's not because I'm still in their house, it's because of my religion.
And we would be saying, well, the victims have to defend themselves. Now,
yeah, the victims are not Israel, it's Palestine.
Do they defend themselves in an appropriate way? Do they even go out? You know, when we were attacked by Al-Qaeda and went to Iraq, did that make sense? No, it made absolutely no sense. And so we can still be critical. We can still be discerning and all of these different things. But the attacks on me as I thought you were a progressive.
Apparently, the reason he put this video out on Twitter is because he's being attacked on social media for being a clown, for being a progressive, except for Palestine. So this is his response video to that.
I want to hear which progressive value I'm not espousing.
I mean, I've already said it. I mean, it's several. You're not espousing just basic human rights. You're not espousing right to self-determination. You're not espousing the right for a country to be sovereign. That's Palestine. You're not espousing any opposition to a colonial settler project. Any of that. You asked for a list. I gave you a list, David. And I'm going to end it there and move on to the next topic here. Let me see if I have a super chat comments on this. I'll read a couple of comments. David Pacman is the adopted bastard son of Tom Hartman. That is actually a pretty good and funny assessment there. Yeah, so I think I'll leave it there. Now let's skip through some of these other topics, and that's the David Pacman one. Yeah. Let's zoom. Oh, and actually, let me say what Nick said here. And Nick says, let me show some reaction. My bad, everybody. So the segment's not over. You don't get to weaponize your pacifism against people who are victims of the empire you pay taxes to, white boy. That's what Nick says there. Let's see if there's any other reaction here. And probably there is, because he has a lot more comments than likes. So that tells me he's being ratioed here. And that's Nick's. Nick's was first. True leftists don't do apologetics for the mass murder of children in Palestine. I'm gonna retweet that one. And then this is Afeni. This is Afeni right here. It says, F you, David. True leftists don't make excuses for the ethnic cleansing. True leftists don't make excuses for apartheid and land theft. Do the fucking math. I try not to cuss. I'm trying to do it less in these streams. David, if a state tells civilians to evacuate, then bombs the route civilians are taking, what does that mean about the state? So it looks like David is not being received well with this. So let's read this one. And here's David Pacman forgetting that when an entire population of people are oppressed for 7 decades, they eventually realize they have nothing to lose by fighting back. So that's another one I shall retweet here. Let's go to another one here. Pacman is the quintessential example of why the term leftist is utterly meaningless. He thinks that because he doesn't like Trump and wants public health care, he's a leftist. But here he is, in the face of genocide, criticizing those fighting back against said genocide. And this is what I said. A leftism in the United States is a set of policy beliefs. It has nothing to do with ideology. It's a set of policy beliefs. That's why, let me just give you an example. It's a set of policy beliefs. Medicare for all. It's not ideology, anti-war, because you say anti-war, but then you go, I'm pro-Israel, I'm pro-Ukraine war. You see how it's not about ideology? It's just a set of policy beliefs that makes you a left in the United States and Western media. So great point by John Clark. And just this tweet alone, he ratioed David. David is at like a 900 likes. Joe Clark, I should say, 2,800. Here's another one. I really can't tell the difference between the slave and the slave master if they both commit violence. So I guess the slavery must continue. That's basically what David Pacman is saying, or that is the result of what happened based on what David Pacman is saying. This is another one that ratios him 1,400, so he gets ratioed multiple times. It's not his message to true leftists is not being received well. These white supremacists are trying to normalize colonization. You think Israel can steal Palestinian land from the Palestinians while killing them and beating the shit out of them for 75 years, and Palestinians is just going to allow that? You stupid fuck. And this is what I said. White Western sovereignists, they start after their own atrocities. That's when history starts for them. And that's how deep their analysis goes. It never goes pre their atrocities. And I think we can end it there. That's enough reaction on that. And I didn't even notice that until I did that. So let's get to the next segment. I cover RBN's coverage. I covered that. Let's now go to some of the coverage online. And we're going to go to the Nikki Haley segment. So that's a different tab. I'm going to bring this down and bring up my YouTube now. I wanted to do as much as I wanted to do on Twitter before I change platforms that I'm using for media. This one right here, Nikki Haley goes on State of the Union that we're going to be covering. So let's cover some of the morning shows now. Nikki Haley, we got on State of the Union. We got Ron DeSantis on Face the Nation. And we got Lindsey Graham on Meet the Press. So here goes. She is. And so let's call this Warmonger Spotlight. And this is one of the segments I want to start doing more often. This is Nikki Haley goes on State of the Union. That is the next segment we shall cover. And no new super chats. Let me just make sure. Check my super chats. Make sure I don't have any. No new super chats. If you are looking to support RBN, if you're looking to support our one and only employee, our editor and our media person, who is Erin, she does these great graphics like this one here, like this one here, like this one here. Just so many great graphics she does. We give her an equal share out of our Patreon money. So if you want to contribute to not only RBN members, but also help pay our one and only employee, Patreon is the best way. And there you see scrolling at the bottom of the screen. And let me refresh and see where I count. I'm going to start off by talking about this poll because it's very interesting as an analysis of how polls they know how to skew polls to get what they want out of a poll. Let me see where we're at. So with likes, we are at 277 likes. 277. The goal was 300. I think we're going to move the goal up to 350. 377. And now the new goal is 350. We peaked at 390 people at one point was watching. So hit that like button. And we've had over 1,100 people stop through at some point to watch. So thank you all of those that stopped through at some point. I'll put those numbers at the bottom there for you to see. So now let's get back into some of the topics. And this is Warmonger Spotlight. Did I spell Nikki Haley correctly? Now, let's get into this next topic. And Aaron, you can start here. Now, for our latest segment on, for our latest Warmonger Spotlight segment, we have Nikki Haley, who goes on CNN's State of the Union. Now, before I get into the video, because I actually watched it on TV and they played more, I saw more before they show this actual graphic, but the video I'm using on YouTube start right at the graphic. So let's start here before I even play it. Because they have a poll where supposedly the majority of people support Israel. But let me show you how they can break down and skew the poll of support. Because look at the breakdown of age. 18 to 34, 27%. Let me read the question. Israel's military response to Hamas attack is fully justified. That's the question. Is it fully justified? Their response, and this is by age, 27%, 18 to 34. Ages 35 to 49, 44%. Still not the majority. 50 to 64, 56%. 65 plus. Now, in order to get a poll where you get the majority of people saying Israel's response to Hamas would be justified, guess what this pollster would have to do? Just oversample old people over 50, which is exactly they did in this poll. Oversample the people who are 50 years old. So meaning that when I say oversample, that means if I'm going to take a poll and I take 1,000 people, I know where to go to get a certain segment of people to answer questions, even if I don't know their answer ahead of time. If I go to an area where the people I'm polling, or I pull people to poll from a pool of people that have mainly 50-plus-year-old people, guess how that poll is going to come out in support of this question? This is how they're able to manipulate polls. They know exactly where to go to manipulate polls. They know exactly where to go. So let's start here. It looks like if you're 49 and under, you ain't buying this nonsense from Israel. You ain't buying it. You know how devastating that is to the ruling class that they're seeing this? This is devastating to them because 35 and under, you're talking about 27%, a quarter of the population. This is the future. They're saying we ain't buying this Israel bullshit. That's not good for them. So now let's play the video. This is Nikki Haley on State of the Union.
81% of Americans over the age of 65 feel the response by the Israeli government is fully justified, but just 27% of Americans 18 to 34 years old feel that way. The humanitarian crisis is also top of mind for many Americans. 71% of Americans feel a lot of sympathy for the people of Israel. 41% feel a lot of sympathy for the Palestinian people. Former UN ambassador and
so I meant to try to stop it before, right when we were there. Now, let's take this number. Now, remember what I said. In order to get this, I feel a lot of sympathy for 71% says Israel. How do you get that number to be that high? You just sample people that's 50 years old and older to get, and guess who watches CNN? The audiences of these legacy media are 50 plus. Let's continue.
Ambassador and 2024 Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley.
She's here to be unhinged.
Ambassador Haley, thanks so much for joining us. If you were president right now, would you consider using the U.S. special operations to rescue American hostages being held in Gaza? You just heard Jake Sullivan say that one of the complications with that is we don't know exactly where the hostages are, but I'm wondering how much you would consider such a thing.
Thanks for having me, Jake. You know, I think it's important. You have to tell hard truths to Americans. And when you're talking about this, you know, when you showed those percentages of what...
When she says hard truths, she means hard lies. That is exactly what she means. She means the opposite of hard truths.
People think and what they think we should do, you have to be honest with them. This is messy, right? I mean, we desperately want to get those American hostages
when they say
out.
this is messy, that they're saying we have to acknowledge that Israel is doing some bad shit. This is all the soft language they use in order to be able to, for them to say, yeah, we are describing what Israel's doing. We're calling it messy, right? It's messy. Instead of saying, yeah, Israel's committing atrocities along with Hamas, if that's what they believe. They're not going to do that.
Those kids in the hands of those terrorists, like with a mom heart, it made me sick to my stomach for all those parents having to see their children in those terrorist hands. So of course we want them out. But why is it so easy that we can do that? It's because we don't know where they are. And I have been in those tunnels.
I'll let it play. I'll let it play.
That are massive, that are sophisticated, and that Hamas uses to hide equipment and ammunition and to do their dirty work and maybe to have those hostages. But where are those tunnels? They're underneath hospitals. They're underneath schools. They're in hard to find places. So this is incredibly tough. I feel for the Israeli families, I feel for the American families, and I feel for any other families who've lost a loved one or have someone in a hostage situation, because it's really bleak right now, and it's hard for anyone to feel good about this.
Yeah, we just showed images that your office gave us of when you visited Israel in 2017, and the IDF took you to those tunnels near the kibbutz Ein HaShlosha. You said that because those tunnels in Gaza are near civilian sites, it's going to get bad. It's already pretty bad, obviously. There are more than 2.3 million Palestinians in Gaza. More than half of them are children. Do you think the U.S., Israel, Egypt needs to be doing more to help these innocent Palestinian civilians get out of harm's way. Although you just heard Jake Sullivan say one of the problems is Hamas is keeping the civilians in Gaza. They don't want them to leave.
There are a couple of things at play here.
So this is one of the latest, just State Department, just it's an obvious, it's so ridiculous, such a ridiculous thing, but this is their latest State Department talking point line. They're not reporting that Israel actually blew up pathways for them to evacuate. They're not reporting that as why they're not getting out. Instead, they're saying Hamas is keeping everybody there. It's so preposterous, but this is the latest talking point. This is like the 5th interview I've heard this exact same thing. Hamas is not letting them leave. Okay, let's it's so ridiculous.
Hamas is going to do everything they can to not have them leave, because guess what? They want them all to die. One, they want to use them as human shields, but two, they want to blame Israel and show images of dead children and say, look at what Israel did. But don't ever forget what Hamas did. Don't ever forget those girls running for their life. Don't ever forget those babies that were killed in cribs. Don't ever forget the people that they were.
They love Nikki Haley. And this is why she is absolutely unhinged. And I won't say that part, but she is absolutely unhinged. It's like, yes. Let me just let her say this part again, because she absolutely doesn't. She's like, anytime you think, she's basically saying, anytime you want to have sympathy for the Palestinians, think about these other white settlers over here. Let's listen.
Ever forget those girls running for their life. Don't ever forget those babies that were killed in cribs. Don't ever forget the people that they were dragging through the streets. And what were they saying, Jake? They were saying death to Israel, death to America. That's who we're dealing with. But I dealt.
If Israel came into your house and was murdering your family members in your house, saying, I'm taking your house, and they were being funded and given weapons by the United States, why wouldn't I would be saying death to Israel and America too? By the way, go watch Rome's documentary on our page on YouTube. It's Death to America. That's the name of the title. Shouting that out. Let's go.
I dealt with this at the United Nations. You're going to hear all of those Arab countries vilify Israel for what's about to happen. You're going to hear all of them say,
Jake Tapper is such a disgusting propagandist. Like, he knows this is theater. He understands that Nikki Haley is a person who's being brought here to propagandize people, and he's just here to serve. He's kind of just throwing up the volleyball to serve. Here you go. Spike it. Here's another one for you. And you can see it in his face, or at least I can see it in his face.
Say, how dare you not do more for the Palestinian people? And you know what? We should care about the Palestinian citizens, especially the innocent ones, because they didn't ask for this. But where are the Arab countries? Where are they? Where is Qatar? Where is Lebanon? Where is Jordan? Where is Egypt? Do you know we give Egypt over $1 billion a year? Why aren't they opening the gates? Why aren't they taking the Palestinians? You know why? Because they know they can't vet them, and they don't want Hamas in.
Why do they need to take them? Why don't you just stop torturing them and killing them in their homeland? It's like, take these Arab peasants from their own house. Let them come. Open your doors, other Arab countries. Let me just let it
their
play.
Neighborhood.
Get through this.
So why would Israel want them in their neighborhood? So let's be honest with what's going on. The Arab countries aren't doing anything to help the Palestinians because they don't trust who is right, who is good, who is evil, and they don't want it in their country. So
just
they're
made up
blame
nonsense.
America. They're going to come and blame Israel, and don't fall for it, because they have the ability to fix all of this if they wanted to. They have the ability to go in and tell Hamas right now to stop what they're doing. They have the ability to tell Hamas to let those people out. But you know what?
We're witnessing, what American with the United States mass media, what we're witnessing is an establishment who knows that Israel is about to commit some horrific atrocities that the average human is going to think is terrible. And they're trying to get ahead of that because people are going to eventually turn to the United States and be like, United States citizens are going to turn to the government like, what the fuck are you doing funding this? So they're trying to get ahead and saying, look at what's coming is going to be a bunch of stories saying, look at all this crazy shit that's happening. Don't let real life stories about what's happening in Gaza Strip deter you from the colonial project. That's Nikki Haley. Just despicable. Let me see here. Okay. All right, so never mind. Just looking at something in the background. Which part of the article I'm going to play or read? Here we go.
Going to continue to work with Hamas and their leadership. Iran's going to continue to fund all of this and not say anything. And who's silent? Every one of those Arab countries are going to be silent, but expect for the finger to point to Israel, and the finger's going to point to Israel, to America.
Because that's who's to blame. That's who to blame. Now, let's see what other how else did he set her up for more propaganda? Watch this.
I want you to take a listen to this statement that Governor Ron DeSantis made about I guess he's talking about all of the 2.3 million Palestinians. He said this on the campaign trail in Iowa yesterday.
If you look at how they behave, not all of them are Hamas, but they are all anti-Semitic. None of them believe in Israel's right to exist.
They're all anti-Semitic, but Palestinians are Semitic. They just keep repeating that because they don't care whether or not it's true or not. That's not the point.
Now, just for our viewers' edification, according to recent polling earlier this year from the Washington Institute, which is a pro-Israel group, using the polling of Palestinian Center for Public Opinion, 62% of Gazans wanted the ceasefire with Israel to stay in place. 50% of Gazans want Hamas to stop calling for Israel's destruction, want Hamas to accept a permanent two-state solution based on the 1967 borders. 70% of Gazans wanted the Palestinian Authority from the West Bank to take over Gaza. So I'm not really certain that Governor DeSantis has a real read on the difference between Hamas and the people of Gaza. What was your response when you heard what Governor DeSantis said?
I don't understand how this is being taken as evidence. You clearly just said this is a pro-Israel group that has a poll. Why are we? This is the sort of flimsy sort of sourcing that cable news and all corporate news has. This is the sourcing they have. They'll just say, oh, as long as I mention that it's corrupt, I can just keep going. No, you just said who the source was. So why would we even go with this statement? But let's listen to what she says here.
I dealt with this every day for 2 years. And, what I can tell you is you have to realize that whether we're talking about Gazans and Palestinians, all of them don't. You've got half of them at the time that I was there didn't want to be under Hamas's rule. They didn't want to have terrorists.
You understand? This is them. This is about regime change. They don't, because Hamas has been elected by the Palestinians. They have been elected to government. Some of them. So they don't want Hamas to be the representative of the Palestinian people. They want regime change.
for seeing them. They knew that they were living a terrible life because of Hamas. You had the other half that supported Hamas and wanted to be a part of that. We see that with Iran too. The Iranian people don't want to be under that Iranian regime. They don't. We saw what happened to Masa Amini. We saw how they treat them. There are so many of these people who want to be free from this terrorist rule. They want to be free from all of that. And America's always been sympathetic to the fact that you can separate.
This is complete nonsense that she's saying here. Like, it's I don't have it's too many receipts for me to have to pull up. This is like everything she's saying here is just complete nonsense. Like, that's all I can say. I do have an article I'm going to be bringing up, but it's too much.
Civilians from terrorists. And that's what we have to do. But right now, we can never take our eyes off of the terrorists. I mean, what Hamas did was beyond thuggish, brutal, and sick. What the Iranian regime is doing to help them is terrible. But let's look back at what did Biden do? Biden turned around and fell all over himself to get into the Iran deal. Obama did it before that. You gave all of this money, and what did you do? You empowered Iran to go and strengthen Hamas, strengthen Hezbollah, strengthen the Houthis to spread their terrorist activity. We went and strengthened those sanctions and decimated Iran's economy. And what happened? Biden has loosened the sanctions. Now we've got the fact that he gave $6 billion in hostage money. Okay, now you've frozen it, but we have all these American hostages. Guess what they're going to want? If you gave them $6 billion for 5 people and released hostages, guess what they're going to be asking for all these others that we have? So we've created this scenario where you've given Iran, the Iranian regime, too much power and too much pull and to be able to do.
Like, I don't understand what these hawkish people want. You want a simultaneous war with Iran, with China, with Russia, all at the same time? What do you want to have happen? And I'm going to now pivot to the article to finish out this war spotlight segment. Like, I don't understand. What exactly do you want? And I'm just going to add this part in here. This is Stop Israeli Genocide. And I'm going to read this here. Sorry, I see a pop-up. I know you can't see it, but I see it. Let me take that off. A crime of monumental dimensions comparable to those committed by Nazis is now unfolding before the eyes of the world. More than 2 million people are being deliberately subjugated to starvation and dehydration. The international working class must come to the defense of Gaza and demand the following. The U.S. and the European governments must be compelled to end their support for and complicity in the Gaza genocide. Food, water, electricity, medical care, and all other necessities must be made available immediately. The siege must be lifted. All military attacks must stop. The Israeli IDF must be forced to demobilize at once and withdraw all of its forces from the border with Gaza. And then they show the tweet that accompanies that. And I think there's this here. It's going to take me 1 second. I'm going to bring up the actual tweet. This tweet that is showing here, I'm going to bring it up in 1 second here. Actually, I'm not going to go all into it, so I can just read what it says here because it doesn't matter. So this is the tweet that was inserted into this short little article. It's really a call to action. It's not an article. A matter of life or death. Water runs out for 2 million people in Gaza. No humanitarian supply have been allowed in Gaza for a week. It is a must. Fuel needs to be delivered now into Gaza to make water available for 2 million people. This is terrible. But anyway, we're gonna go ahead and close it here as far as the segment with Nikki Haley. Let me pull this up. Just amazing. Looking at another picture. Yeah, I'm not gonna show some of these. I don't even know if I can get through the YouTube guidelines with some of this. So yeah, I'm not gonna show that. All right, so let's get to this next part here, or this next segment. It's also part of the Israel. Or still involving Israel. Let me say it that way. It's still involving Israel. Let's go here. Let's go here. All right, here we go. Now let's go to, which other one haven't I covered? Let's go to this one. This is a Caitlin Johnstone article we're gonna be covering in just a moment here. Let me pull it up in the background. And this is the next part we're gonna be covering. The removing from the Warmonger spotlight, and we're gonna come back to this Warmonger spotlight because we still have the Ron DeSantis video to cover in just a moment here, but let's cover this. This is, what should I call this? The Israel, let's just do that. Israel-Gaza Massacre. And let's bring her article up here. This is the title. It's not the Israel-Hamas war. It's the Israel-Gaza Massacre. And I'm going to read that for you in just a moment here. Let me get the right caption up. This is the latest on Israel by Caitlin Johnstone. All right, so Aaron, you can be. Oh, let me make sure I don't have a super chat. I do. So let me read the super chat first, actually. Hamas was created and funded by Israel to divide Palestine and undermine PLO. They received funding from the 1960s. I'm sorry, they received funding from the 1960s through at least 2019. I should have added that in because that is true. That is true. So thank you for that, Janice, for the super chat and for the great information. And here we go in. Let's go ahead and dive into this now, this article. This is very short. And Aaron, you can start here. It's not the Israel-Hamas war. It's the Israel-Gaza massacre. And this is by Caitlin Johnstone, her latest, and let's read it. Notes from the edge of the narrative matrix. Actually, we can listen to it too. So let's actually, let's actually play it. Let's see what it sounds like here.
It's not the Israel-Hamas war. It's the Israel-Gaza massacre. Notes from the edge of the narrative matrix. Stop calling it the Israel-Hamas war. It's the Israel-Gaza massacre. Calling it the Israel-Hamas war creates the false impression that this is a war that is directed exclusively at Hamas, when it's really an ethnic purge that's directed at all Palestinians in Gaza.
So let's stop here, because this first part is already great. Stop calling it the Israel war, is the Israel massacre. Calling it the Israel-Hamas war creates the false impression that it is a war that is directly, exclusively at Hamas, and it's not. They're saying they're fighting Hamas, but they're really ethnically cleansing all Palestinians, including Christians. So that is a key point to remember. And let's continue with this.
The child body count alone makes it clear that this isn't a war against Hamas. I saw an anonymous account point out on Twitter that the number of children killed in this onslaught after 1 week already exceeds the number of children killed after a year and a half of fighting in Ukraine, per the United Nations.
Now, in that video we saw at the KC Palestine protest march for the Free Palestine March in KC, they were saying the death count for kids were at 649. 649. Let's continue.
Laying complete siege to a civilian population and bombing anything that stands would be an extraordinary abomination in any war. And this is not a war. It's an enclosed shooting range with military explosives and human targets. Here's a quote from the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations. I really feel sorry for the suffering of the people of Gaza, but we should all remember they elected Hamas 18 years ago.
Where is that? Oh, right here it goes. I'm sorry.
Americans should probably worry about the rapid legitimization of this idea that civilians who have a government that kills people are all legitimate targets. According to the logic of collective punishment we're seeing circulated with regard to Gazans and Hamas, all American civilians deserve to die horribly because they permit themselves to be ruled by a regime which is orders of magnitude more violent and destructive than Hamas.
That is a great point. Caitlin always has these ability to dig or find another layer of analysis, but this is a great point that she's making here. I'll let it continue.
Hamas is responsible for Hamas's decisions. Israel is responsible for Israel's decisions. Hamas is responsible for the Hamas attack. Israel is responsible for provoking the attack via apartheid abuses and for bombing civilians in retaliation for it. It's not actually complicated. Israel has been struggling with a rapidly worsening PR crisis ever since Palestinians started getting internet access and smartphones with video cameras and exposing Israeli apartheid abuses. So if you're wondering why they cut off Gaza's internet and electricity, that's why. Israel was 100% aware that cutting off power.
So to the point that she's making here, and this is her husband that reads her audio version of her article, like they're losing the PR war. And that's one of the main reasons that she's stating here. They cut off electricity. You cut off what's actually happening real time, what's actually happening on the ground. Then the atrocities you commit, there's less ability to tell the stories of these atrocities and have actual video evidence and otherwise evidence. So let's continue with this article.
Internet access to Gaza would prevent Palestinians from recording and publishing footage of its coming war crimes. They struck a fatal blow to citizen journalism in Gaza, thereby blinding the whole world to what's happening there. There's a tweet by NBC News. Breaking. Hamas intentionally targeted elementary schools in Israel, instructed terrorists to siege hostages. The mass media asked you to believe the Hamas attack was unprovoked. Then they asked you to believe blatant babies on bayonets atrocity propaganda. Now they're asking you to believe Jewish kids were in school before dawn on a Saturday morning in Israel. Western journalism, folks. The only reason so many Israel apologists scrambled to circulate unverified stories about beheaded babies and mass rapes instead of waiting for evidence was to make the real atrocities Israel is perpetrating and will continue to perpetrate in Gaza look reasonable and appropriate.
Isn't that exactly what we were saying? Is all to make the upcoming atrocities seem balanced. That's why they're all getting ahead saying all this just nonsense over the top. Hamas terrorists, Hamas this, Hamas this. and their capabilities as a war. All this stuff is all to be over the top because they knew the upcoming atrocities that Israel was about to inflict. So just more great points made here. Let's continue.
After this current crisis is over, I'm probably going to think a lot about the fact that MSNBC suspended 3 Muslim reporters during Israel's Gaza assault because it didn't want Muslims reporting on it. I used to think all genocidal massacres are bad, but then some really smart Israel apologists explained to me that this genocidal massacre is completely different because this genocidal massacre's perpetrators believe they are doing the right thing for a good reason. If there were 2 million Jewish people trapped by Christians in a giant open-air prison and placed under total siege, being told that half of them had 24 hours to relocate into the other half or be killed, nobody would have any confusion about what they were witnessing.
That's a great point.
Everyone's got a serious case of 9/11 brain right now. You know about 9/11 brain, kids? It's when something scary happens and everyone goes insane and starts believing a bunch of lies and consenting to power-serving agendas that do exponentially more damage than the initial trauma. I keep getting people acting like it's controversial or even outlandish to say that Israel is an apartheid state. It's not. The leading mainstream Western human rights groups say it's apartheid, as does the top human rights group in Israel. They said we need more censorship because of COVID. They said we need more censorship because of Russia. They said we need more censorship because of January 6th. Now they say we need more censorship because of the Hamas attack. Maybe they just want more censorship. There's a tweet saying that Israel killed 724 Palestinian children in Gaza within a week. The primary job of Israel apologists in the coming days is going to be finding ways to spin this self-evidently terrible thing as perfectly fine and appropriate.
That is such a great point. And that's what we're seeing. This is the best way I've heard now this described. The primary job of Israel apologists in the coming days is going to find ways to spin this self-evidently terrible thing as perfectly fine and appropriate. And that's what Nikki Haley was doing in that segment. That's what Ron DeSantis does in the segment I'm going to show you. That's what Lindsey Graham does. That's what Cory Booker did in the segment I covered yesterday. That's what they're all doing, including AOC, including Bernie Sanders. Is this perfectly put by Caitlin? Let's continue.
Before engaging an Israel apologist in a debate about the ongoing Gaza purge, it's probably a good idea to ask them to clarify whether there's any amount of death and destruction Israel could inflict there that would cause them to stop supporting what Israel is doing. Is there a death count they'd consider too much? How many dead Palestinian civilians are they willing to tolerate in this current operation? Tell them to give you a number. If they can't give you a number and place a limit on how much human butchery they're willing to accept from Israel, that tells you they're not actually defending Israel for reasons that have anything to do with humanitarian concerns or valuing human life. They're saying they'll defend Israel no matter what it does and no matter how many atrocities it commits, because their support for Israel is entirely based on ideology and/or religion. In which case, there's no reason to continue the debate, because you can't debate someone out of their Christian fundamentalism or Zionism or Islamophobia or whatever it is that's driving their support. They're not arguing with you out of any interest in morality or justice or truth or facts. They're arguing with you solely to advance an agenda.
That is spot on, and I'm gonna leave it here. They're not arguing with you out of any interest in morality or justice. Or truth or facts. They're arguing with you solely to advance an agenda. And that is a spot on by Caitlin Johnstone in her latest piece. It's not the Israel-Hamas war, it's the Israel-Gaza Massacre. And I'm going to put the link to this video / article into the description box, and it is there now. Just put it in there. So if you want to go finish it out, there's a couple more paragraphs, but I do want you to go and read that on her platform, so she gets the direct credit instead of watching all of it here. So please go do that. And that is another fantastic read put together by Caitlin Johnstone and read by her husband. I don't know his name, but I do know, I have heard that that's her husband. So let's go back to Twitter and cover the rest of the stories here. I know we got Ron DeSantis. We also got Lindsey Graham segments to cover. I think I have something before that. Yeah. So let's put all of these together. So Palestinian resistance. Just wanted to go through and show you a bunch of different imaging, a bunch of different things that I'm seeing. This is sort of an update for the Palestinian resistance fight, just giving you lots of updated information and the latest sort of coverage of it, just in case you watch here. So let's do that. But first, I gotta put the right banner up here. Got that one done. This one, David Pacman. So Palestinian resistance update. Let's call it that, because it's all encompassing. There's a bunch of different videos and things I want to show you and kind of just comment on. I put them all together. So let's do that here. Palestinian resistance update. Okay. Actually, let me check and see if I have any super chats before I get going here. We are sitting at 339 likes and no new super chats, but 339 likes. The target is 350. So we have hit our target. We've hit our target, and now we will push that target up to 450. 450, which should not be a problem because we've had 1,486 people come through at some point. So that's the amount of people that at some point have watched, with a total of 420 people watching concurrently at the same time. That was our peak, 420. It's a good number to have, 420. Close to one of my daughter's birthdays. So that's the numbers down at the bottom. Hit that like button to get us to our new target, which is 450. That's about a little more than 100 more people to hit that like button. 1,486 of you have come through and watched at some point. I want to thank all of you. And we hit our peak at about 420 people watching concurrently at one time. So hit that like button, get us to that target. And now let's get into just Palestinian resistance update. And this is just it's not a linear story. It's just giving you different bits and pieces about what has been going on down there. And here's a video here. I'll read the caption. This first video is from the Cradle. It says, whatever the resistance does, we are with them. Amid the rubble and in a show of steadfastness, a man in Gaza affirms the people's unwavering support for the Palestinian resistance. Quote, there are no fighters here. It's all civilians. So let's listen to this and I'll translate. It's in another language, of course. Whatever the resistance does, we are here. We are with the Sorayas. We are with every Palestinian faction. Hang on a second. Let me turn it down. Then you can hear me more. So, and I'll start over so you can hear it better. Whatever the resistance does, we are here for them. We are here for Qasem. We are here for Soraya. We are here for the Palestinian faction that fights for the... That was quick. Sorry, I have to go back further. That fight for the sake of the homeland, and that is all. Allah is sufficient for us. Allah is sufficient for us. And I think he says again, no more than that, no more than that. Then he says, there are no fighters here. It's all civilians here. This is a civilian. Everything here is civilian. The fighters aren't here. Do you think the fighters will show themselves? We don't see the fighters. We don't see our heroes. The Mujahideen. All right, so now I'm going to let it play all the way through so you can see him.
ليش ما تعمل المقاومة احنا معها؟ ليش ما تعمل المقاومة احنا معها؟ احنا مع القسام، احنا مع السرايا، احنا مع كل فصيل فلسطيني بناضل من اجل وطنه وبس. وحسبي الله ونعم الوكيل، اكثر من كده لا. مش عساكر، كله مدني، هذا مدني كله مدني. وين العساكر؟ العساكر بيلاقوهم، احنا ما بنشوفش العساكر. احنا ما بنشوف الابطال، المجاهدين.
All right, so now let's go to the next receipt I have here, and that's this one, just showing you the mass pro-Israel demonstration. This one from Allen, and Allen's with Mint Press. Mint Press News says massive pro-Palestinian demonstration across the United States. The media isn't giving them enough attention, so here is a roundup. This first one, Chicago, 15,000 protesters shut down the streets. Let's play it. Let's check the next one. This one is New York. Over 10,000 people attending a Palestinian, a Palestinian solidarity march. And here's New York. When people are occupied, resistance is justified, is what they're chanting. That is a lot of people there. All right, so it just shows them marching. Now let's go to the next one. This one, huge crowds in Los Angeles yesterday demanding an end to the occupation. Here goes another one here. These are some great size crowds at all of these locations. So we went to Chicago, we did New York, we did Los Angeles. Let's see where else he got. This is San Francisco. It says more than 8,000 outnumber the rival pro-Israel march. So I guess there's a pro-Israel march too. So let's listen. Let's see. That's awesome. This one here, this is Washington, D.C. This is in Chuck Mody's neck of the woods. The footage that we show of him is usually typically around that area. So let's watch this one. Is it going to play? There we go.
Take the streets of Washington, D.C. October 14th, 2023. Tens of thousands take the streets of Washington right here for the White House. Right as we come to the White House, everybody's demanding an end to the siege on Gaza, a ceasefire immediately to save the children of Gaza, to save the families of Gaza as Israel engages in a genocidal rampage. Message for all Gazans that the world will not forget you, the world will not let you be alone.
Let's here is Kansas City. This looks like Nick's footage right here. Or yeah, they got it from us. So this is Nick's footage that he's using. Is a great outcry, and it's a credible scene. This is Detroit, Michigan. This is not Rome's coverage. No, this is somewhere else. Detroit has a large Muslim population, actually, in the surrounding areas. That is a huge crowd. And as he stated, the news is not reporting on this. And to understand the background of the protest and the conflict it says, watch this excellent Examiner video right here. I don't think we got time to watch that. And then there's some in Seattle. So I think we'll stop there, just showing more. So let's listen to a little bit of this. This might be noteworthy here. This is Mint Press News.
Israelis were killed while Palestinians nearly died. That's the leading headline on the BBC after Israel pummeled Gaza, the world's largest open-air prison, with Western-supplied bombs after Hamas's surprise attack and rockets that hit Israel. Some media outlets are even leading with images of injured Palestinian children while reporting on unverified crimes committed by Hamas. As if given the same script, corporate media anchors and journalists are repeating the same line, that Israel has a right to defend itself as it bombs Gaza's 2 million Palestinian population, whom 50% are children, targeting civilians, violating international law. Meanwhile, the same anchors and journalists demand Palestinians denounce violence and Hamas and run with unverified stories handed to them by the Israeli government. This week's coverage by Western corporate media underlined its inability to hold the world's fourth largest military to account for war crimes, and instead, it's given airtime to Israeli military officials to incite genocide against Palestinians, who are caged like animals in the world's largest concentration camp. Western corporate journalists cannot report neutrality on Israel and Palestine, and here's just a few examples as to why. Let's take the New York Times. Not only has the newspaper constantly supported Israel's expansionist policies, it itself has directly participated in the dispossession of Palestinians from their homes. The New York Times Jerusalem Bureau is built on a Palestinian house, which belongs to a noted Palestinian writer, Ghada Karimi, a survivor of the Nakba. The Times has also often cooperated with Israeli officials directly. In 2014, for example, it received and obeyed an Israeli gag order to suppress the news that Israel had arrested a Palestinian journalist. And from 2008 to 2012, the New York Times Israel bureau chief Ethan Bronner was exposed to having his 20-year-old son enlist in the Israeli army while he was actively covering the region for the newspaper. The so-called newspaper of record never made this public to its readers, raising serious questions of bias and a conflict of interest.
I've seen this video many times. Check it out. They have it on YouTube. I don't know if I even used it as an intro one time. I may have, but it's good to insert for this segment. Now let's back up a little bit here. Some more receipts here. I already read that. Let's show you this one here. This is Istanbul witnessing a mass demonstration in solidarity with Palestinian. This is Istanbul. There's no sound, so don't worry about it. There's no sound. That's amazing. Just amazing. So that's Istanbul. This here is San Francisco. So we saw San Francisco. Let's skip over that because we saw San Francisco. This is Chicago. Panning around. There's just a lot of coverage. That's LA. We saw some of this, but this is LA. And yeah, all right. So we're kind of staying on the subject, but we're gonna go from sort of showing the resistance to now reporting on some updated news here, and that update is this. Let's get this down. Let's get this down. Let's get this down. All right, clean up. This one from Sputnik. Israel postpones ground offensive in Gaza Strip due to bad weather, reportedly. Now, they could be calling this due to bad weather, but it could be other factors like other outside pressure from other countries. But let's go ahead and give this the right caption. Israel postpones ground offensive in Gaza. There we go. All right, so Aaron, you can start here. Israel postpones ground offensive in Gaza. So let's read this. This is from Sputnik. It's a very short article that just basically gives you the lowdown of what happened, but I'll read the full caption. It says, Israel postpones ground offensive in a Gaza Strip due to bad weather, report says. And that was from Sputnik, and this is from RT News. Israel postpones ground operation in Gaza. That usually means New York Times. Israel decides to put off their start of its ground operation against Hamas in Gaza due to adverse weather conditions, according to New York Times. I'll look at that in a second and see if New York Times has me blocked out. And also this one in a second. I know that one does not. So let's get to some of these articles. They're both kind of short. Because it's not really a whole lot to report on other than the headline, but they do their best. So let's start with, I guess we'll start with Sputnik first. Let's start with that. Let's start with RT News. All right, let's start with this one. I thought this was Sputnik. Here's the headline. Israel postpones ground operation. And let's read a little bit of the article. Yeah. The offensive had been planned for the weekend, but was rescheduled due to adverse weather conditions, the newspaper claims. Israel has decided to put off the start of its ground operation against Hamas in Gaza due to the adverse weather conditions, the New York Times has claimed. The newspaper is also reporting that the incursion will likely come at quite a price for Israel military, given its scope as well as the fortification built by the militants. In an article on Saturday, the media outlet alleged, citing anonymous Israeli officers, that the invasion was initially planned for the weekend, but was delayed by a few days, at least in part because of weather. These are so far preluding Israel's pilots and drone operations from providing. Precluding Israel's pilots and drone operations from providing ground forces with air coverage, the New York Times explained. It quoted 3 unnamed Israeli officers as confirming that the imminent operation would involve tens of thousands of service members, including commando units and tanks, supported by warplanes, helicopters, gunships, drones, and artillery fired from land and sea. The alleged goal is to complete destruction of Hamas leadership, which has controlled the enclave since 2007. The planned ground operation is expected to be the largest of its kind in over a decade, the New York Times reports continues, adding it remains unclear if the IDF is planning to take control only part of the densely populated enclave or all of it. There is also a big question mark over whether Israelis are going to run Gaza or install a new Palestinian Authority should they succeed in removing Hamas from power there, it wrote. So, I mean, I guess this is sort of good news that they're postponing an operation that will inevitably lead to hundreds, if not thousands, of dead Palestinians, innocent Palestinians that are not a part of Hamas. And that's a separate sort of conversation to have. Let's see let me go to this other tab here before I bring it up, everybody. Let me see if there's any. No, the other article has even less information than this one. So good that this was the one that I read first. So let's now go back to Twitter. Let me see if there's anything new. This is sort of this particular part of this massacre is new that they're putting off or postponing it. So let's go ahead and say counter offensive from Israel. I'm trying to keep it as basic as I can so it can get the most results that I can here. Okay. Okay, so that's breakthrough news. That's a few days ago. I'm looking for something more recent. This is just more news. I'm trying to see what the counteroffensive. So it doesn't look like there's any updates. Yeah, this is all old. This is all older information. So there's no update on what I just read, the article. That's what I was looking for, to see if there's an update on the article, like if they've changed their mind or they given a further out date of when it's going to happen. And it doesn't look like it. Wow. Okay. I mean, that's gonna have to be a segment. What I just read, I couldn't just read that and just include that. All right, so I think we're gonna cut it right there. As far as that counteroffensive segment, now I'm winding down. We do have a RBN meeting in about 30 minutes. I covered that. I'm gonna have to postpone the Thomas Sankura segment. Ron DeSantis I'm going to do. So, and I think that's it. Yeah. So we'll do the Ron DeSantis segment in just a moment here. Yeah, I'm not gonna play this particular clip because it's not about Israel. But I'm gonna bring it up in the background here. Where did I see this? On Face the Nation. Okay, so Face the Nation. Let's bring up Face the Nation now. I'm gonna bring it up in the background before I actually share it. So give me one moment here. And I'll change the caption. Ron DeSantis, obliterate Hamas. DeSantis gives advice to Israel, because that's essentially the question that I think her name is Brennan. I think her name is Brennan, that she asked Ron DeSantis. Let's go. Where is it? Not State of the Union. I'll watch that. Face the Nation. Here we go. And Face the Nation. Where's the video, though? Face the Nation. And the thing is, this interview, they interview him for more than one segment. It's a pretty long interview, but we're going to be focusing in on the sort of the first, I guess you can say half of this is more than a half. Let's pause it. Back. Here. Let's go. Okay, so now I have the right place. Now let's share. So let's just bring up the actual episode, and that'll be better because that snippet doesn't cover the part I want to cover. They get right into it right in the beginning of this interview. So Aaron, you can start it right here. Ron DeSantis goes on Face the Nation, and he's just, politician number, insert whatever number, politician number 4087, who was pushing unhinged talking points about the massacre that's happening between Palestine and Israel. So let's listen. This is Face the Nation. Ron DeSantis talking on this.
We go now to Florida Governor and Republican presidential candidate Ron DeSantis, and he joins us from Tallahassee. Good morning to you, Governor.
Good morning.
You're running to be the next commander-in-chief, so I want to focus on some of the crises we're seeing right now. You were once a Navy JAG, which means you advised on the law of armed conflict. With Israel about to launch this invasion of Gaza, I wonder...
So let's make sure we understand what's happening here on screen. I guess she feels she's getting advice from a military expert. That's the way she's presented it. You were a military JAG giving advice, so she's going to ask for his advice. Now, what is his background in? I know it's involved with Guantanamo Bay. So the guy who was involved with torture, that guy we want advice from on Israel. It's like when they bring John Bolton on and ask him for his advice. Or when they bring on Nikki Haley, for that matter, because she's unhinged warmonger herself. But let's listen to what he says to this question.
I wonder what you would advise them in terms of distinguishing between legitimate targets and civilians.
Well, one, Israel has a right to defend itself to the hilt, and that means the complete elimination of Hamas, the eradication of their terrorist infrastructure. Israel has put out warnings to civilians about where...
Not sure why this is stopping and starting, but
Israel is going to conduct operations, and has told civilians there to leave the area. Hamas is telling those civilians to stay in the area. So they're using the civilians as human shields. So of course, when you're in war, you want to avoid that. But if there are civilian casualties, that's the fault of Hamas. That's not going to be the fault of Israel.
So,
but would you advise...
So Ron DeSantis, one, doesn't even ask the question. Understand the mindset. She's saying, how do you determine, what's your advice on determining who's are real innocent people? And he said, oh, nigga, I ain't really concerned with that shit. If there's any casualties of wars on the Palestinian side, that's the fault of Hamas. Ask them when that's not the question. Why, if you are on the side of just, or if you're on the just side, why are so many of you on this supposed Israeli just side? Why are you finding it hard to address questions like this? So let's see, because she's going to double back. Let's see if he eventually answers it.
For example, the Israeli military to avoid attacking infrastructure to provide water and electricity as they have done?
Well, Margaret, the Hamas is holding people hostage.
That's an easy question. Yes, I would advise them not to commit war crimes. Yes. That's easy. I'm going to go back 15 seconds and let him answer.
Not going to be the fault of Israel.
But would you advise, for example, the Israeli military to avoid attacking infrastructure to provide water and electricity as they have done?
Well, Margaret, the Hamas is holding people hostage still. You have Israelis being held hostage as well as Americans being held hostage.
I understand
I don't think they're under, but I don't think they're under an obligation to be providing water and these utilities while those hostages are being held. Hamas.
There is no obligation to provide water to Palestinians who are not involved in this conflict because supposedly there's allegedly a Hamas person around somewhere. But the same thing is such a these events is so exposing the U.S. empire because this very thing y'all was just reporting how Russia does this to Ukraine and this is terrible war crimes. Y'all was just talking about that. And then side note, you notice I haven't heard Ukraine in days. I haven't heard the talk of what's happening in Ukraine in days. Found a new war, a new pretty young war to jump on.
Should return those hostages before any discussions are had. And it's a disgrace what they're doing. And Israel has every right to use all the pressure that they can to get those people back.
There are 2.3 million people living in Gaza.
Refuses to answer the question.
You support?
It's not collective punishment. Hamas is the one that is creating this predicament. Hamas is the one who always uses civilian targets to conduct operations. And we dealt with this some in Iraq where Al-Qaeda in Iraq would commandeer mosques. So under normal circumstances, of course, you don't target a religious.
They commandeer mosques. So that's the reason. You see how this is the reason why all the time. Why you kill the babies over there in the school? They commandeered the school. Why did you blow up the UN peace treaty, UN peacemakers? The Hamas people is around the corner. Yet there is a certain segment of people who are believing it simply because they don't know otherwise. And that's what this type of propaganda depends on. You not knowing all of the story. So you just have to go, I have to depend on these people. They saying this is what happened. I don't know any part of this story.
Religious institution, but if you have terrorist groups that are converting that in to a base of operations, then you absolutely treat that as military
say
targets.
Anything. He will not
Hamas
address
those decisions to
being fair to the Palestinians. He will not even go down that path.
Purposes.
Is there any caution you would give to the Israeli military?
That's what you're saying. Like, you ain't gonna give them no advice about nothing, huh? And she's usually the crazy warmonger person pushing her guests to be more. But she doesn't have to do it with this guy.
Would you ask, for example, the prime minister to hold off until the 500 to 600 Americans who are trapped in Gaza manage to get out?
Well, look, I think that that's something in terms of those that, of course, you would have discussions with. We would be willing to do, if I was president, apply resources to be able to help any American who's either being captured or in harm's way. I would note I, as governor of Florida, have actually launched flights to bring Americans home from the war zone now. We're going to have the first flights landing in Florida today. We're going to bring hundreds of people back from Israel to the state of Florida, and they've had trouble dealing with the federal government. So, of course, that's an important thing that you want to consider. Right.
But there are 500 to 600 Americans stuck in Gaza specifically. And let me ask you a little bit more about that. Because
you notice she has been asking persistent questions, trying to get Ron DeSantis to show some level of fairness, some level of humanity, and he's saying, fuck that shit. This is like 3 or 4 different questions she's asked about different things, but just asking about showing some level of fairness and compassion towards the Palestinians. It's like, fuck that shit. Blame Hamas. The thinking of Western chauvinists.
The 2 million people who live in Gaza, half of them are under the age of 18. Let's take a listen to something you said yesterday.
Half of them are not adults. And you're indiscriminately going in, mowing the lawn, as they say. Rhonda's. Okay, let's play it. Oh, I didn't hit the play button. There we go.
Accept people from Gaza into this country as refugees. I am not going to do that. If you look at how they behave, not all of them are Hamas, but they are all anti-Semitic.
I'm sure you know all Arabs are Semites, but
I'm sure you know all Arabs are Semites. At least she corrects him. Now, in another segment, Ron DeSantis is caught saying this, or no, different, not this stream, another stream. He's caught saying something similar like this, even after he's been corrected here. So what? Why would a person who knows that these said people are Semitic, why would they keep using the term, calling them anti-Semitic? Unless it's intentional, like I said earlier, for people who don't know what being anti-Semitic is, or who don't know that Palestinians are also Semitic. You see how propaganda depends on you not knowing the full story.
How can you paint with such a broad brush to say 2.3 million people are anti-Semitic?
Well, first of all, my position is very clear. Those Gaza refugees, Palestinian Arabs, should go to Arab countries. The U.S. should not be absorbing any of those. I think the culture, so they elected Hamas. Let's just be clear about that. Not everyone's a member.
Right. They elected Hamas.
So
you guys have a problem with a duly democratically elected representation. What happened? I thought you guys are doing these conflicts or supporting these conflicts because of democracy.
Probably aren't, but they did elect Hamas.
In 2006, and then the military occupation happened after that, where they went in and haven't allowed elections since 2007. So in 2006, there was an election.
But there was a lot of celebrating of those attacks in the Gaza Strip.
She's trying to say, hey, turn down your unhinged nature on it. Can we turn it down? He's like, no, nigga, fuck that shit. You ain't getting me to turn this shit down. I don't care how insane I sound. They're trying to out her.
This has been an issue for a long time.
Him and Nikki Haley is trying to unhinge warmonger each other, especially on Israel and China.
They teach
Palestine and
kids
China
to hate Jews. The textbooks do not have Israel even on the map. They prepare very young kids to commit terrorist.
The textbooks don't even have Israel on the map. That's because Israel is not a country. It's Palestine.
So I think it's a toxic culture. And I think if we were to import large numbers of those to the United States, I think it would increase anti-Semitism in this country. And I think it would increase anti-Americanism.
He just said they're Semites. You see how he's just gonna keep saying that? She just told you that they're Semites, but bringing them here, having them be refugees here, increases anti-Semitism. They say, hey, I have been giving my talking points and I'm sticking with them. I am a Sagittarius, John. So we both are Sagittarius. Yes, I am a Sagittarius. Now, for the sake of time, because I do have a meeting in 20 minutes, I do want to get to the Lindsey Graham, and it rolls right into this, it rolls perfectly from this story, because it's just another unhinged politician going on TV trying to get regular people to be unhinged like them. That's essentially what's happening. So here is Lindsey Graham on Meet the Press, and let's bring it up. Actually, let me bring this down, and I'm gonna get to it. The Lindsey Graham interview is on Meet the Press. Okay, I needed to remember Meet the Press. So let me get Meet the Press on the screen, and we shall play it. All right, so I got it on the screen. Let's actually start playing the last place I played it. So let me rewind it here. Okay, so here is Lindsey Graham. Let's stop it. Oops. Stop it right there. All right, now I will reshare with everybody. And this is our last segment. I covered Nikki on state. Yeah, these are the main ones on the screen here. I covered that. Is this Meet the Press? Okay, yeah, it's Meet the Press right here. All right, so let's change the banners here. And Aaron, you can start here. Lindsey Graham goes on Meet the Press, and he says a couple of things that I do want to address and kind of break down. So let's listen. This is Meet the Press with Lindsey Graham.
And welcome back. Joining me now is Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. Senator, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you.
So you've just gotten off of the phone with Israeli and Saudi officials. You have new information. What can you tell us?
Yeah, I will be going to Saudi Arabia and Israel in the coming days with a group of senators. The drive to peace and normalization between Saudi Arabia.
He's trying to save the normalization process of Israel. So if you didn't know, Israel has been in talks and with Saudi Arabia, I'm not sure what other countries, with sort of normalizing, I think it's Saudi Arabia only, with normalizing Israel into Arab countries, basically where they're interacting, normalizing them. And of course, this latest massacre has put that on hold. And I reported on it yesterday. Saudi Arabia, along with others, they're out on this normalization process, at least for now. It's on pause. And I guess him and a group of senators are being sent out there to kind of save this process. So let's listen to Lindsey.
Thank you.
So you've just gotten off of the phone with Israeli and Saudi officials. You have new information. What can you tell us?
Yeah, I will be going to Saudi Arabia and Israel in the coming days with a group of senators. The drive to peace and normalization between Saudi Arabia and Israel continues. There's a desire by both parties to move forward in this effort to normalize relationships. Israel is talking about humanitarian aid. They're going to turn the water on in the south. They're urging the Egyptians to let people from Gaza.
So what it sounds to my ear, what he's saying, what was negotiated. Israel's going to turn the water back on. They're going to open up a pathway for some Palestinians to leave through Egypt, I think they said. So Let me go back and you can hear that again. Oh, I didn't mean to go that far back.
And
My
welcome
bad.
back. Joining me now is Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. Senator, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you.
So you've just gotten off of the phone with Israeli and Saudi officials. You have new information. What can you tell us?
Yeah, I will be going to Saudi Arabia and Israel in the coming days with a group of senators. The drive to peace and normalization between Saudi Arabia and Israel continues. There's a desire by both parties to move forward in this effort to normalize relationships. Israel is talking about humanitarian aid. They're going to turn the water on in the south. They're urging the Egyptians to let people from Gaza go into the Sinai. I just got a message from Cindy McCain, the head of the World Food Program. They're in dire straits. So here's my message to our friends in Egypt. Open up, allow Gaza residents to go into the Sinai, to the international community. We have to help. To our friends in Israel, you need the time and space to destroy Hamas. All Palestinians are not the same. If Hamas is destroyed, Israel is safer, and the pathway to peace between the Palestinians and the world gets wider. So I start this morning somewhat optimistic that Iran's goal to destroy the peace process between Israel and Saudi Arabia will fail.
So Lindsey Graham, along with a lot of other politicians, are blaming Iran, or saying Iran has a lot to do with the funding or the backing, at least, of this Palestinian resistance through or via Hamas. And let's continue with what he says here.
And you don't think the peace process at this point is dead as we sit here and speak?
No, I've never felt better about the drive to peace by Saudi, Israel, and the United States shall continue. We need to change the world as it is. Nothing would change the world for the better more than Saudi Arabia, Israel, and the United States to form agreements to end the Arab-Israeli conflict as we know it.
I do want to ask you about the crisis on the ground in Gaza. And you have said that Israel should go into Gaza and, quote, level the place.
If necessary.
Are you...
Oh, now he's adding if necessary. Now he's added the caveat, if necessary, because we reported on that. You wasn't saying no if necessary before, sir. So now he's cleaned it up. He maybe he watched himself and he said, wow, I sound kind of unhinged there. So let me add in the if necessary part. But back to the video.
Calling for the full-scale destruction of Gaza despite what could be untold civilian deaths?
No, I'm calling for the destruction of Hamas. Israel is trying to find a safe place for Gaza residents. Hamas is trying to stop them from leaving. Israel is trying to encourage them to leave. Our friends in Egypt, you have it in your power.
Remember I told you in another segment, I'm hearing this story more and more and more. Hamas is stopping these people from, it's completely a joke. That's a joke.
Give Gaza residents a safe place. This will be a World War II type operation where you go in and destroy the regime, Hamas, and over time replace it with something else like we did Germany and Japan. But the Israelis do not want to kill innocent people.
Like I said.
They're going to turn the water on. Every death going forward, I blame on Hamas, not Israel.
Well, and of course, 40% of Gaza's population is under the age of 15.
50 under 18, 40% under 15. And we're pretending, this is why they have to act like this is some sort of equal playing field of war. This is why you got to say, oh, Hamas is everywhere over there, because they're literally killing kids. Oh, so Hamas was over there. That's why I blame them. So let me rewind what he says here. Listen to the before she starts to talk. What he says, he sneaks this in.
To leave our friends in Egypt, you have it in your power to give Gaza residents a safe place. This will be a World War II type operation where you go in and destroy the regime, Hamas, and over time replace it with something else like we did Germany and Japan. But the Israelis do not want to kill innocent people. They're going to turn the water on. Every death going forward.
Israelis don't want to kill innocent people. Just saying shit because of vibes.
World War II type operation where you go in and destroy the regime, Hamas, and over time replace it with something else like we did Germany and Japan. But the Israelis do not want to kill innocent people. They're going to turn the water on. Every death going forward, I blame on Hamas, not Israel.
Every death going forth, I blame it on Hamas, not Israel. That's the same thing Ron DeSantis. You think it's a coincidence they have all the same talking points? Israel has a right to defend itself. Every death that comes, it can blame on Hamas. Hamas is blocking people from blaming. These are State Department, CIA talking points that the media helps to push to cover up these atrocities and Americans' support for it. Kid you not.
Israel.
Well, and of course, 40% of Gaza's population is under the age of 15.
40%.
Are you confident, though? Right now, the people of Gaza are trapped. Are you confident? And are you essentially sending the message to Israel to let them get out before they begin their ground invasion?
Israel doesn't need me to tell them to let them out. They want them out. Israel doesn't, you know, the tit for tat exchange, the old way of doing business, died with the killing and slaughter of the Israeli babies by Hamas. We're not going to do the old game anymore. The goal is to destroy Hamas as a terrorist organization that would liberate the Palestinian people who live in Gaza.
How is it liberating? How is it liberating them to destroy the people that they elected to represent them? So they're basically saying, you fuckers don't want to vote for somebody else, then we're just going to make your life a living hell till you are forced. This is the same tactic that they use with sanctions. Just disgusting.
Time and the space. Egypt, if you're listening to this program, open up your borders. The world will help you deal with these people in the Sinai, and they will go back home. But when they go back home, Hamas will be destroyed.
And I have to ask you the same question I asked Jake Sullivan. What happens the day after if Israel is successful in defeating Hamas in Gaza? Who governs Gaza, Senator?
Okay, here's what I think. That's a really good question. All Palestinians are not the same. They're all not terrorists. The PA is still in existence in the West Bank. The deal between Israel and Saudi Arabia has a Palestinian component. For this deal to really go into effect, the Saudis are willing to help the Palestinians, but the PA needs to change. We got old corrupt leaders. They need to be replaced with younger leaders who are less corrupt. So I have no animosity toward the Palestinian people. I want to destroy Hamas.
The Palestinian Authority, that's when he says PA, that's the Palestinian Authority. That's who they want because those are the sellouts. They got a couple of good people in there. Don't get me wrong, but those are the sellouts. That's the regime, the American sort of puppet regime that took over Iraq, for example. It's not there now, but you get what I'm saying. It's like we go and topple it, and then you install somebody that's friendly to what you want to have happen. That's what he means by a World War II type of thing. You go in and demolish everything, and then you just start to rebuild from there. So I'm going to go ahead and end it there. I got 5 minutes before my meeting starts with my RBN members, so I'm going to end it right here. Please, on your way out, hit that like button because it is gravely helpful to spreading the word about our content when you do that. So much appreciated if you hit that like button on your way out. I'm going to show you one thing before I take off. Show you one thing, and I'm going to tell you a couple of things. The first thing is for today's stream, we're approaching 1,900 people that have watched at some point. We have 418 likes. We would love to get to 500 before the stream is over. So if everybody hit that like button, we can get to 500 before the stream is over. And I do have one more super chat to read. This one, I've learned more information about Israel-Palestine history during the past week than I've learned all through schooling and from the mainstream media. RBN Gray Zone Jimmy Dore Show, and other independent medias are beacons of truth. And much appreciate. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Much appreciated for that $20 super chat from ARJ 1997. Much appreciated. One thing I did want to show before I get out of here, that is this. Our merchandise is here. So when you go to our website, click on let me put our website down here. Go to our website right here. When you click on the RBN merch tab, it will bring you here where we have 11 designs. So you see 1, 2, these are different designs. 11 designs you can get on a mug, you can get on tote bags, you can get on t-shirts, you can get on sweatshirts, you can get on hoodies and sweatshirts. I think that's it. Yeah. So for example, let's pull up, here's the NATO one that's kind of popular. Let's pull up this NATO hoodie. You can get in different colors. I like the yellow set against the blue. And then you can zoom in. It says NATO is a terrorist organization. So you can get items like this on our page. Make sure you check that out. I am going to be heading out now. Don't forget, tomorrow we have Ajamu Baraka. Yeah, tomorrow we have Ajamu. Yeah, tomorrow's Monday. I'm getting my days mixed up here. Everybody. Tomorrow we have Ajamu Baraka right here. Of course, we'll be talking about the colonial cellular project known as Israel. And also, oops, that's not the right one. This one is the one I wanted to show. This one right here is the one tomorrow. So this is happening tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have Ajamu Baraka on 2 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. That's 11 a.m. on the West Coast. 2 p.m. Eastern, Ajamu Baraka will be on RBN Live. Make sure you check that out. Get on our Substack so you can get the direct link when it's sent out. So get on our Substack. We email you the direct link. You can watch the stream in your email, or you can travel over to YouTube and watch it, and so you can comment and interact with some of the other people watching. All right, so that's going to be it. Today, there will not be any outro video because I have a meeting that literally starts in about 30 seconds. So thank you for watching today, and I shall see you tomorrow. Post-duopoly show and more. Thank you for watching.